Chapter 740. Reporting to the Sect Master. I have just received news that the head of the Celestial Sword Pavilion, Mu Feng, massacred nearly 10,000 members of the Otherworldly Spirits Sect the day before yesterday. The head of the Otherworldly Spirits Sect, Flying Snow Palace, was severely injured, and he fled in defeat. What? Upon hearing this news, the silence in the hall was instantly broken. Chu Hen subconsciously stood up from his seat, his eyes filled with deep surprise. What did you say? Mu Feng has appeared? Haozi, who was beside him, was also shocked, and his small eyes narrowed. The sect master of the Thousand Cranes sect, Qi Zhang, stood up as well, and then he said to Chu Hen in a low voice, I didn't have the time to tell you. A few days ago, there was some movement from the Skylink Sword Pavilion, and the defensive formation that protected the Sword Pavilion was dispelled. But I didn't expect the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to act so quickly. Just now, Chu Hen had come to ask about Xilan. He hadn't had time to ask about the situation at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. But before he could finish his words, such an important piece of news came. Have you seen that Mu Xiongkai? The one who asked was Great Elder Duan Qingshan. No, I didn't see Mu Xiongkai at all. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the hall was instantly astounded. Back then, during the Sword Codex meet, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion had met with an unforeseen event. The Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirits sect had ganged up on the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the Sword Pavilion Master, Mu Xiongkai, had fought against the three of them alone. In the chaotic battle, Mu Xiongkai burned his life essence and defeated the enemies. Mu Feng, who had witnessed his father's life essence being burned to the ground, activated the bloodline limit of the sword demon profound body in a fit of rage. When the defensive barrier of the sword pavilion was activated, he swore a blood oath that when the sword demon returned, he would dye the sky red with blood. After nearly 2 years, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion reopened. In just a few short days, news of Mu Feng massacring the otherworldly demonic sect had reached the ears of everyone present. The fact that Mu Feng was so ruthless was enough to show that his heart was filled with hatred. However, Mu Xiongkai did not appear again. The answer was obvious. Report. At this moment, another figure hurriedly rushed into the main hall. Speak, Qi Zhang said in a deep voice. Reporting to Sect Master, the Celestial Sword Pavilion's team is already on their way to the Azure sect. On top of that, we've received news from the West that the Illusory Rain sect has already formed an alliance with the Azure sect. On top of that, several people from the Flying Snow Palace who escaped from the Otherworldly Spirit sect are currently gathering with the two sects. Before the previous wave subsided, another wave arose. The Azure sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect had actually joined forces to resist the assault of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. It was obvious that a chaotic battle that would shake the entire province was about to erupt. In the eyes of the crowd, even though the Celestial Sword Pavilion had defeated the Otherworldly Spirit sect in one fell swoop and displayed an unstoppable might, the Celestial Sword Pavilion was still a force to be reckoned with. But they definitely couldn't defeat the alliance of the three great sections. Mu Feng's trip to the Azure sect was definitely fraught with grim possibilities. Sect Master, what should we do? Duan Qingshan asked. Before Qi Zhang could make a decision, Chu Hen said to Haozi, Senior Brother Haozi, return to the alliance of generals with Qi Tong and Lu Qi immediately. Mobilize all the elites and rush to the Azure sect as soon as possible to assist the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. All right. Haozi solemnly nodded his head in agreement. Without saying anything else, he led Qi Tong and Lu Qi out of the hall in a hurry. Then, Chu Hen turned around and cupped his fists at Qi Zhang. Sect Master, let's talk after we return. A trace of determination flashed through Qi Zhang's eyes. The Thousand Crane sect stands on the same side as the Alliance of Generals. Qi Zhang will definitely not sit by and do nothing. Grand Elder, yes. Pass down my orders. Gather everyone in the Thousand Crane sect. It's time to settle the score between us and the Azure sect. Qi Zhang's voice was as loud as thunder, and an invisible pressure was released from his body. Grand Elder Duan Qingshan's eyes turned cold, and he bellowed, "Understood." In less than 2 years, the 100 Nations continent was once again in turmoil. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Sword Demon had returned to massacre the otherworldly spirits. And now, the Azura sect, the alliance of generals and the Thousand Crane sect had formed an alliance. Over the next few days, the entire 100 Nations continent could feel an invisible undercurrent rapidly spreading to every corner of the continent. The news of the otherworldly spirit sect's massacre spread like wildfire, and it swept through all the major factions in the continent. At the same time, everyone could vaguely smell the scent of chaos in the air. Most likely, the otherworldly spirit sect was just the beginning. An even more violent storm was about to fall upon the outer prefectures. Several days later, the moment the first ray of light from the horizon is shown through the cloud layer, battle cries that soared to the sky erupted like a tsunami in a large canyon under the main peak of the Azura sect. The Yunluo Gorge was 400 miles long. It was like a natural moat that traversed the east and west of the Azura sect. It looked like a huge natural barrier. This was the Azura sect's most important line of defense. If anyone wanted to invade the Azura sect's mountain gate, they would have to pass through this place. The silence was completely shattered, and a storm descended. In an instant, the vast Yunluo Gorge had turned into an intense battlefield. Kill! Kill! The experts from both sides clashed head-on, like two waves of beasts, and a dense black wave immediately filled every corner of the gorge. The experts from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion were dressed in black, and their weapons were bound tightly by a cloth band. They exuded a cold and sharp aura. Even if they died in battle, the weapons in their hands would not fall to the ground, all for the sake of vengeance. At the peak of a mountain on the east side of the canyon, the tip of the Buddha demon sword was planted in the ground, perfectly straight between the cracks of the rocks. Both of Mu Feng's palms were pressed against the hilt of the Buddha demon sword. A baleful aura surged from his body, and his pair of ice-cold eyes were stained red with hatred. He looked at the intense battle before him with an indifferent expression. His long hair danced in the wind, and his expression was so calm that it sent shivers down one's spine. Kill! The remaining elites of the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirits sect banded together and charged at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Even though the Heavenly Sword Pavilion did not have the slightest advantage in terms of numbers. Today, every single one of them had come with the resolve to die in battle. What was the most terrifying person? A madman who did not fear death was the most terrifying. Clearly, the people from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion had all turned into madmen who did not fear death. Audacious brat! Those who offend our Azura sect shall die. At this moment, a dozen or so experts from the Azura sect charged at Mu Feng with intense killing intent. A cruel sneer appeared on Mu Feng's face as he faced the dozen or so menacing people. In the next instant, he raised the Buddha demonic sword in his hand, and an intense blue light erupted from the blade of the sword. Wong! As the sword pierced through the air, the space around it trembled. A blue sword ray that was more than 300 meters long swept through the air and ruthlessly slashed at the crowd. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 741. More than a dozen overlapping screams rang out. With the demonic sword in hand, Mu Feng had instantly killed more than a dozen Shura sect experts. A bloody mist drifted as a murderous aura filled the air. However, Mu Feng's eyes did not waver in the slightest. Raising his sword, he charged into the battlefield in front of him and began a merciless massacre of the Shura sect and Illusory Rain sect disciples. Boom! Beams of extremely powerful blue sword aura danced. Every strike Mu Feng unleashed was like the deadly light of death that came from the Grim Reaper. Wherever the sword light went, the enemies would be blasted into pieces. Severed limbs would fly in the air and splatter everywhere. The scene was abnormally bloody and cruel. It was unbearable to watch. In the chaotic battle, an area with a radius of more than 50 kilometers was reduced to a battlefield. The battle between the two sides was like a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. Fierce battles of all sizes extended to every corner of Cloud Luo Gorge, spreading out in every direction. Scarlet blood dyed a large area of the soil red. Corpses were scattered everywhere. Buzz, Mufeng raised the Buddha demon sword high with both arms. Extremely restless, true essence gathered on the blade like a violently throbbing blue flame. The spiritual energy in the surroundings was abnormally restless as the space began to vibrate rhythmically. Startling demonic sword. With a roar, Mufeng slashed down with his sword. In an instant, a blue sword pillar that spanned 1,000 meters across the sky slashed at the Shura sect and illusory rain sect disciples that were charging at him with the force of splitting a mountain. Boom! The world seemed to lose its color with that one strike. The sword beam that resembled a divine pillar was comparable to the holy light that broke through a huge wave. The boundless blue light rippled high into the air like a tidal wave. A terrifying force came crashing down, instantly slicing through hundreds of enemies. Blood spewed out and flesh flew everywhere. The ground in front of them was immediately split into a huge ravine. The mountain ridge in the middle was split into two and split open from the middle. Rubble and dust flew everywhere. Evil creature, don't you dare be impudent. At this moment, a deafening roar came from behind. The black tide surged, and a thick, bloody, and ferocious aura surged towards Mufeng. Bang! The bright blue light and the surging red killing intent collided, causing chaotic air waves and light balls to explode. Mufeng took a few steps back and looked at the person who came. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Refinement failure. You old dog. You've finally crawled out of that dog cage of yours. The newcomer was none other than a Shura sect leader, Lin Qo. He was one of the main figures who had harmed the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Lin Zhao's face was ferocious as he viciously stared at the other party. Little bastard, I was careless back then and failed to kill you. I did not expect that it would lead to today's disaster. You are really much more ruthless than your useless father. Humph. Mufeng laughed coldly. No matter how useless my useless father is, he still got you 3 old dogs to scram out of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Buzz. Following that, 2 figures with powerful auras flew over from the other 2 directions. One of them was the sect leader of the Illusory Rain sect, Helian Zhong. The other was the sect leader of the Otherworldly Spirit sect, Shui Fei Gong. These 3 were the top experts of the 100 Kingdoms continent. They surrounded Mufeng from 3 directions. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. A few days ago, the Otherworldly Spirit sect was massacred by Mufeng. Now, the moment Shui Fei Gong saw Mufeng, he could no longer suppress the killing intent in his heart. Bastard, you still dare to come here today? Ignorant brat, you are too arrogant. The sect leader of the Illusory Rain sect, Helian Zhong, also had a cold expression. The auras of the 3 experts were overwhelming. With the demonic sword in hand, Mufeng's cold face showed no signs of fear. 3 old dogs, it's time to settle the debt. You owe my Heavenly Sword Pavilion today. As you wish. Shui Fei Gong could no longer control the anger in his heart. He raised a majestic palm and attacked his opponent. A cold glint flashed in Mufeng's eyes. With a wave of his demonic sword, a powerful sword aura swept toward Shui Fei Gong like a wild dragon rising out of the sea. Bang! The intense collision caused the space to tremble. A surging shockwave swept out from the 2, spreading in all directions. Immediately after, Helian Zhong and Lin Xiao also launched fierce attacks at Mufeng from the left and right. Intense collisions of quintessential essence continuously blossomed between heaven and earth. The sky was filled with light patterns like a rain of fireworks, causing the space to tremble and ripple endlessly. 2 years ago, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was in turmoil. Mufeng awakened the sword demon Xian body and greatly activated the limits of his bloodline. The sword demon bloodline could be considered a top-notch physique among the Xian bodies. If the limits of his bloodline were activated to the extreme, it could contend with a saint body. Many things had happened and changed in the past 2 years. Now, Mu Feng's cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm. With a Buddha's Devil Sword, he could defeat the sect leader of the otherworldly spirit sect, Shui Fei Gong, who was at the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm. However, Mu Feng was not facing just one 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm expert. There were 3 of them. Under the encirclement of the 3, it was clear that Mu Feng had less offense and more defense. He quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. How dare you come to my Shura sect and behave atrociously with this little ability? Kill him. Buzz. After saying that, Lin Zhao's blood and qi surged. A thick blood-colored mist rose between his arms. Then, he pushed his palms toward Mu Feng. Rumble. An incomparably powerful blood-colored path flowed down like the Milky Way, rolling up a terrifying force. The space trembled. The mighty force was like an army of thousands of horses galloping toward them. 1,000 net critical strike. At the same time, Helian Zhong and Shui Fei Gong unleashed their powerful auras at the same time. Illusion art. Lightning tribulation mending the heavens. Clang. Thunder rumbled, and the sky darkened in an instant. Thick dark clouds squeezed together, covering the sky and pressing down on the people below. The crisscrossing lightning was like thousands of silver snakes, shrouding the sky above Mu Feng's head. Storm Nebula Fist. The sect leader of the otherworldly spirit sect, Shui Fei Gong, also released a powerful aura. He punched out, and the true yuan that was like a tsunami formed into a tornado. Within the tornado, there seemed to be a ferocious and terrifying beast roaring. Endless gray light surged, and a powerful force seemed to tear the space apart. The extremely powerful attacks of 3 experts at the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm blotted out the sky and covered the Earth. Like 3 torrents, they all surged towards Mu Feng, who was in the center area. In an instant, the entire world was in a state of violent distortion. The violent and powerful wind waves intertwined with each other. The strength of this force was enough to shatter anyone who was caught in it. An unstoppable pressure surged toward Huang Xiaolong like a raging storm. Just when everyone thought that Mu Feng was about to lose his life, a cold glint like a sharp sword appeared in his eyes. The wrath of the heavens, the appearance of the ferocious devil, the appearance of the sword pagoda/great pagoda demonic art. Boom! In the next instant, several dark blue light pillars intertwined with each other and shot into the sky. Mu Feng raised the demonic sword in his hand high up, and a dazzling blue light burst out. Sword pagoda slash. A thunderous sound swept out, and the dark blue light pillars that intertwined with each other rapidly merged together, forming an ancient pagoda that was over 1,000 meters tall. A vast and surging aura of desolation spread out between heaven and earth. Endless blue light rose and blossomed. Boom! Bang! In an instant, the terrifying blood-colored great path, thousands of lightning tribulations, and the powerful fist force that resembled a nebulous storm. 3 extremely destructive forces attacked the space where Mu Feng was. The violent power was like the roar of the wind, the frenzied tide of ferocious beasts, and the light patterns that were released rose and fell undulating in the sky. The 9 heavens were about to be pierced through by the soaring airwaves. The powerful shock waves surged toward the surroundings, causing many people from the sects who were fighting nearby to vomit blood and fly backward. As the light patterns scattered, the violent shock waves dispersed, and an ancient pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall once again appeared between heaven and earth. This was the move that Mu Xiongtsai, the master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, had once used. Now, it had appeared once again. At this moment, Mu Feng was actually standing at the top of the ancient pagoda, holding the pagoda demonic sword in his hand, looking down at Lin Xiao, Helian Zhong, and Flying Snow Palace. His gaze was like a torch, and his aura was awe-inspiring. What? He wasn't injured at all? Lien Xiao and the other two's expressions changed. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The stronger the bloodline limit of the sword demon Xian body, the greater the power of the Great Pagoda demonic art. Could it be that the purity of Mu Feng's bloodline limit was even higher than Mu Xiong's? Shock. Absolute shock. But in exchange for their shock, they were filled with unforgivable, murderous intent. Kill him first, Lien Xiao shouted sternly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, a few more figures with powerful auras, who had reached the earth-profound realm, flew out from the chaotic battlefield below. One of them was the Shura sect's enforcement elder, Yu Sha. The Shura sect, the illusory rain sect, the otherworldly spirit sect, all the profound world realm experts flew around Mu Feng, surrounding him in the center. It was obvious that Lien Xiao planned to gather the strength of all the profound world realm experts and directly kill Mu Feng. He had no intention of giving his opponent any chance to retreat. Buzz buzz. Nearly 10 profound world realm experts released a terrifying and powerful aura at the same time. The sky changed color and the wind howled angrily. With Mu Feng as the center, the entire space fell into an extremely uneasy rhythm. Everyone from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was shocked. No matter how strong Mu Feng was, it was impossible for him to withstand the attack of so many profound world realm experts. The Shura sect's enforcement elder, Yu Sha, laughed sinisterly. You should be proud to die under the combined attack of so many of us. After we slaughter your Heavenly Sword Pavilion, the next step will be that arrogant General Alliance. Whoosh! Right at this critical moment, monstrous dark clouds surged down from the sky above the 9 heavens. Along with a mountain-like pressure, a ray of silver light suddenly shot down diagonally. It was like an aurora that came from the galaxy, and it struck Yusha with a force that could destroy mountains and rivers. What followed was a deafening bang. Sound. That pillar of light landed heavily in the valley below, along with Yusha's body. In an instant, a terrifying wave of silver light shot up into the sky like a tsunami. The ground sank deep into the ground, forming a huge crater. The ground cracked inch by inch, and debris flew into the sky like a swarm of locusts. Chapter 742. Bang! The mountains crumbled and the earth cracked. It was like a thunderbolt. A terrifying force descended from the sky, smashing Yusha's body heavily into the canyon below. The incomparably powerful shockwave was comparable to that of a falling meteor, accompanied by an endless burst of silver light. The ground caved in deeply, forming a huge crater. The ground cracked inch by inch, and a thick layer of rock was blown off. The sky was filled with gravel, flying nearly 100 meters into the sky. The majestic aura directly sent the surrounding sect disciples flying. The expressions of everyone present changed greatly. As dust flew into the air, another fierce young figure appeared in the pit that had been reduced to ruins. The previously aggressive Yusha was now sprawled on the ground. The young figure's right knee was directly pressed against Yusha's spine. The latter's body was greatly bent, and his internal organs and bones were all shattered. His eyes were wide open, as if he had died with a grievance. The Shura sect's enforcement elder Yusha was instantly killed on the spot. In that instant, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Humph! An indifferent smile rose from the corner of the young man's mouth. He slowly got up and casually brushed off the dust on his body. You still want to slaughter my General League? You talk too much. Whoosh! An invisible, biting cold aura spread out. He then raised his head, revealing a handsome young face. The sharp contours of his face were cold and handsome, as if they had been carved by a knife. It's you. The expressions of Lien Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, Helian Zhong, and the others changed abruptly. Everyone in their eyes revealed deep shock. How could this be? How long had it been since they last met? Had the other party's strength already become so powerful? Seeing that familiar face, a glimmer of light appeared in Mu Feng's eyes. He said somewhat frivolously, "You've come just in time." How could I be absent when my brother is busy? Chu Hen said with a faint smile. Just you alone? Then you really shouldn't have come. Mu Feng said in a low voice. No, I'm here too. At this moment, a loud and clear voice exploded in the sky on the other side. Boom! The earth-shattering golden light tide was like the endless water of the heavenly river, surging over. Then, within the torrential golden splendor, a giant heavenly mouse rushed out. Rumble, with an unstoppable momentum, the Skyrat phantasm charged straight at the Azura sect, illusory rain sect, and otherworldly spirit sect disciples. In an instant, a large number of disciples were crushed to smithereens by the ferocious attack, as if they had been crushed by a mountain. Another expert at the profound Earth realm. Everyone from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion and Azura sect turned pale with fright. On the other hand, Mu Feng's pupils couldn't help but tremble. He couldn't help but clench his fists together. Apart from being shocked, a deep sense of joy appeared on his face. Ha, brother, I howsy am here. A young man with small eyes stood proudly in the sky, exuding a powerful aura that shook the surroundings. Looking at this familiar person in front of him, Mu Feng was really surprised. After not seeing each other for so many years, the word brother was enough to comfort him. Kill. Roar. Then, a mighty army of demonic beasts crossed the mountains and charged towards them. The reinforcements of the General League arrived soon after. Principal Jiang, Guild Leader Qiao Yong, Su Yurong, Qi Wanli, Dong Wahong, and the others. Many experts of the Frost Alliance led the Heavenly Beast Army to spearhead the assault on the enemies of the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect. The General League is here. What? These stupid rabble. Lien Xiao cursed with a gloomy expression. But just as he finished speaking, rumble! On the other side of the sky, there was a sudden clap of thunder. The wind blew, and the clouds surged. The surging momentum was like a galloping army. Figures with extraordinary auras stepped through the air. Without saying a word, they threw themselves into the chaotic battle to assist the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The Thousand Cranes sect is here. Boom! Bang! A chaotic battle that was countless times more intense than before suddenly erupted in the sky above the Cloud Luo Gorge. The earth quaked, the mountains shook, and the sky was in chaos. Sword light crisscrossed, spear light shot out. All sorts of gorgeous combat techniques collided like rainbows, causing waves of energy to surge. The momentum of the Azura sect's three-sect alliance was immediately suppressed. With the addition of the Thousand Crane sect and the General League, the situation on the Heavenly Sword Pavilion side took a sharp turn, and their morale was greatly boosted. Bastard! Lien Xiao was furious, and he immediately pointed at Mu Feng, who stood at the top of the Sword Pagoda, and shouted, "Quickly, kill this little bastard first." But as soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling golden beam of light shot down diagonally like a laser, rolling up a powerful murderous aura and rushing over. Bang! A majestic wave of true essence exploded between the heavens and the earth. Tens of thousands of golden patterns splashed out, but Lien Xiao was forced back by this impact. Then he steadied himself and roared with extreme hatred, "Qi Zhang, what can I do for you?" A frivolous voice assaulted Lien Xiao's face. The Thousand Crane sect's sect master, Qi Zhang, stood in midair while his entire body was enveloped by powerful, true essence. A vertical eye flickered with a dazzling light gold light at the center of his brows, and he emanated a pure, imposing aura that was dignified like a god. Do you really intend to interfere in the matters of my Azura sect? Lien Xiao's killing intent surged while a bright glow erupted from his eyes, and he wished for nothing more than to tear Qi Zhang apart. Qi Zhang laughed coldly, and then he flicked his sleeve and said, "Lien Xiao, it's time to put an end to the enmity between your Azura sect and my Thousand Crane sect. That would depend on if you have the ability." Lien Meng was enraged. The veins on his forehead and neck were bulging. He shouted at Flying Snow Palace, Helian Zhong, and the other Earth Profound Realm experts, Kill these little bastards who don't know what's good for them. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Xiao dragged a ray of blood-red light behind him as he charged towards Qizhong. Blood shadow, profound body. Bang! Whoosh! A strand of scarlet red blood energy instantly surged out from within Lin Xiao's body, and the dense, baleful aura he emanated was over 10 times stronger than before. In an instant, Lin Xiao's hair fluttered in the wind while the veins on his body bulged up. His bones and body had grown slightly larger, and even sharp nails had grown out his hands. Qizhong, I'll make sure your Thousand Cranes sect doesn't leave today. Hiss! Along with the sound of air being torn apart, a narrow, long, and sharp bone blade had actually grown out from the center of Lin Xiao's palms. These two bone blades were extraordinarily sharp and fierce, and Qinshi had no doubt that his skin would definitely split apart upon coming into contact with them. Qizhong wasn't afraid in the slightest, and he faced Lin Xiao's attack with his bare hands. Whem! Whem! As he moved, Qizhong's arms were actually suffused with a strand of material silver-colored powder, and in an instant his hands had become hard and stiff like rocks. Bang! Their attacks collided head-on. True essence surged while waves of energy shot into the sky. Both sides refused to give way to each other, and neither was weaker than the other. Lin Xiao's intention was very simple. He would hold back Qizhong while the rest of the people surrounded and attacked Mufeng. However, it was also at this moment that a dazzling silver beam of light flashed through the void, and a piercingly cold aura directly attacked the illusory rain sect's sect master, Helian Zhong. You're courting death. Helian Zhong's eyes turned cold as he formed a palm with one hand, and he struck at the incoming phantom. In the next instant, a heavy leg covered in the power of dark lightning swept horizontally at Helian Zhong. Bang! A dull explosion reverberated in the sky, and space trembled violently. Chaotic dark lightning splashed everywhere. The leg and palm collided head-on, and the incomparably fierce impact was comparable to the impact of a mountain. Helian Zhong's body trembled, and he was directly sent flying back. Mufeng's eyelids twitched, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He murmured softly, "Looks like even after activating the Sword Demon bloodline, it's still difficult for me to surpass you. Chu Hen, little bastard die." At this moment, the otherworldly spirit sect's sect master, Shui Fei Gong, had already arrived in front of Mufeng. The powerful force of his palm was comparable to a flood that broke through a dam, and with the momentum of lightning, it blasted toward Mufeng. The corner of Mufeng's mouth curled up in disdain. He raised the pagoda demon sword, and it emitted a dazzling blue light as he blocked the other party's attack. Boom! The flying snow palace's palm energy solidly struck the blade of the Buddha's demonic sword. The blue light surrounding Mufeng's body immediately became restless. It was like a flame being blown by a strong wind, recklessly flowing and fluctuating. Mufeng's feet were immediately dragged back from the top of the ancient pagoda. Shui Fei Gong's eyes were bloodshot, and he could not wait to devour Mufeng's flesh and drink his blood. The otherworldly spirit sect had lost nearly 10,000 people. Even if he killed everyone from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion today, there would be no otherworldly spirit sect left in the Hundred Kingdoms province. It was easy to imagine how much hatred Shui Fei Gong had for Mufeng. At the same time, the other profound world realm experts also pounced toward Mufeng like ferocious wolves and tigers, intending to assist Shui Fei Gong in killing Mufeng first. Don't forget that I'm still here. Haozi sneered frivolously. He immediately turned into a ray of light and dashed out. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of a profound world realm expert and blocked his path. Roar! Immediately after, a deafening roar of a ferocious beast shook the entire Cloud Luo Gorge. A gigantic beast covered in rock armor, hard scales, and a pair of wings on its back came whistling through the air. The might of the Beast King overwhelmed everyone present. Shi Yan's evil dragon beast opened its huge claws and pounced on a profound world realm expert from the Azura sect. The latter was caught off guard and was struck down from the sky, crashing into a mountain peak. Boom! Chapter 743. Roar. The mutated Shi Yan evil dragon's ferocious might shook the heavens and was peerlessly domineering. Its furious attack killed a profound world realm expert from the Shura sect with lightning speed. The terrifying power caused more than half of the mountain to collapse. Such a spectacular scene was a shock to the eyes of countless people. Shudder. Everyone shuddered. Chu Hen had only left the province for slightly more than a year, yet he had displayed such terrifying strength upon his return. Profound world realm companion, beast emperor. The strength he displayed was not any weaker than the sect master of the illusory rain sect. Kill, charge, trample the Shura sect. The heavenly sword pavilion, the Thousand Crane sect, and the General Alliance were invincible. For the sake of supporting Mu Feng, Chu Hen didn't hold back at all, and he mobilized all the elites of the General Alliance. The demon beast army charged at the front and broke through the enemy's formation. The experts of the Thousand Crane sect followed closely behind and seized the opportunity to launch a frenzied slaughter. The Thousand Crane sect and the Shura sect were mortal enemies. He didn't show any mercy when he attacked. Sharp, ice-cold blades mercilessly stabbed into the enemy's chest and heart. Blood dyed the ground red. Broken corpses lay on the ground in Yunluo Gorge. The battle line continued to extend and lengthen. The entire canyon was filled with battle cries. The cruel scene was just like the rumored Azura Hell. It's really chaotic. Dan Jun, Fu Qin, and the others stood at the peak of a mountain and watched the intense battle in front of them. Even though they came from Mount Kunliu, they couldn't help but be moved by the scene. Go if you want to, Dan Jun said to Qin, Qi, Shu Hua behind her. After all, this was a battle between the major sections. As an outsider, Mount Kunliu couldn't interfere in this matter. However, Qin, Qi, Hua, and Qin wanted to help Chu Hen. It was obvious from their restless eyes that they didn't want to stand by and watch. Won't the Home Master blame us if we do that? Hua Shui asked. Danjin smiled indifferently. Blame what? Isn't Chu Hen the future sect master of Mount Kunliu? Isn't the sect master's matter our Mount Kunliu's matter? The eyes of the four girls lit up. If you guys aren't going to make a move, then I'll be making a move first. As soon as he finished speaking, Shanjun immediately transformed into a ray of light and shot out. Dazzling and resplendent golden patterns of light spread out from his body like spirit vines. In the next moment, the golden light patterns that spread out with Danjun at the center quickly solidified. They immediately transformed into a majestic and domineering giant golden eagle. Screech! The loud and clear eagle's cry resounded through the mountains and rivers, and the powerful sound waves shook everyone's eardrums. With a loud screech, the giant golden hawk that Shanjun had transformed crashed into an earth-profound realm expert from the illusory rain sect with the force of collision. It was earth-shattering, and the void trembled. The terrifying energy that was like a volcanic eruption directly surged into the sky. The powerful shockwave was like a huge tide that spread endlessly, causing the sky to darken and the earth to lose color. The earth-profound realm expert from the illusory rain sect did not even have the chance to scream before he was blasted into pieces by the powerful impact. What? It was actually another earth-profound realm expert? Lian Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, Helian Zhong, and the others were both shocked and furious. They were extremely shocked. Where did Chu Hen find so many helpers? Every one of them was terrifyingly strong. If the situation continued to develop like this, even if Lian Xiao and the others won today, their vitality would be greatly damaged, and it would be difficult for them to recover for a long time. Senior brother Shanjun is too fast. Before Zither, Jishu, and the others could react, Shanjun had already made his move. It really made them a little speechless. Immediately, the four girls flew out one after another without any hesitation and threw themselves into the chaotic battle. Zither, Jishu, and Go all possessed extraordinary combat strength. As a medical master, Hua Shui directly activated Mount Kunliu's strongest medical secret technique, the accumulating spirit saint origin technique. Boom! In an instant, a dazzling holy radiance erupted from Hua Shui's body. Beams of white light were released from her body, and then they fell into the bodies of the Thousand Cranes sect, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the General's Alliance's injured. Something that shocked everyone happened. The injuries on the injured were instantly healed. Fluorescent light flowed around their bodies as their wounds healed and scabs formed, and they once again erupted with powerful vitality. Their injuries healed just like that. What's going on? Amidst their shock, everyone turned around and saw Hua Shui, who was emanating immortal qi, and they were instantly overjoyed. It's Miss Hua Shui. Someone from the General's Alliance shouted. Isn't she too powerful? It's a healing technique. Kill. With Hua Shui's powerful assistance, the morale of the General's Alliance, Thousand Crane sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion skyrocketed. All of them immediately became fearless, and they charged into the enemy's ranks to slaughter them. Meanwhile, the Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect were in a complete panic. How were they supposed to fight? They were already completely suppressed in terms of morale, and now that such a monstrous assistance had appeared, there was no way they could fight. Although Hua Shui's spirit accumulation of sacred qi was powerful, there were too many people here. It did not take long for Hua Shui's pretty face to turn pale, and the Reiki energy in her brain palace was rapidly depleting. Jishu returned to Hua Shui's side and warned, "Don't take care of everyone. You won't be able to take care of everyone. Heal those who are more seriously injured. I got it." Hua Shui nodded, and then withdrew a portion of her saint qi, mainly to heal those who were more seriously injured. Damn it! Lin Xiao, who was fighting the Thousand Crane sect Master Qi Zhang, was enraged when he saw the current situation. Their previously advantageous situation had been destroyed just like that. He roared at Hellion Zhong and Flying Snow Palace. Why are you still stalling for time? Hurry up and kill these two little thieves. From the crowd's point of view, Qi Zhang was the strongest among them. With Lin Xiao holding Qi Zhang back, the others just needed to speed up and finish off Chu Hen and Mu Feng, and they would be able to turn the tide. Unbeknownst to them, the other two were inwardly complaining. Back at the Otherworldly Spirit sect, Flying Snow Palace had already lost to Mu Feng once. Even though they had learned from their past mistakes, it was still difficult for them to reverse the situation in a short period of time. As for Hellion Zhong, he was even more grieved. Chu Hen, who was only in the second order of the Earth Profound Realm, had a terrifyingly strong physical body. In addition to that, Hellion Zhong, who specialized in illusions, was clearly his weakness in close combat. Chu Hen had completely grasped Hellion Zhong's weakness. With his golden body, he didn't even give Hellion Zhong time to use his illusions. Step by step, he pressed on, beating Hellion Zhong until he had no way to retaliate. Buzz! A majestic and monstrous aura erupted from Chu Hen's body. A powerful black light covered his entire arm like the flames of the netherworld. Bang! A heavy shockwave exploded in the air. The power of Chu Hen's fist was like a mountain as it collided with Hellion Zhong's fist attack. A circle of black ripples spread out in the sky. Hellion Zhong's body trembled. The blood in his body surged, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The terrifying impact directly sent him flying. Sect Master. The disciples of the Illusory Rain sect were shocked. In the next moment, a powerful sword force gushed out from Chu Hen's body. A dozen or so condensed black sword lights appeared out of thin air in front of Chu Hen. Moreover, they erupted with a desolate aura. They flew out and took advantage of the momentum to slash towards Hellion Zhong. However, facing the piercingly cold sword energy flying in front of him, a cold smile appeared on Hellion Zhong's face. "Heh, I've been waiting for this moment. I'm sorry to tell you you're finished." Ta! Suddenly, Hellion Zhong clasped his 10 fingers together and formed a strange seal. An invisible and powerful aura was quickly released from his body. Illusion, heavenly cage of darkness. Illusion, heavenly cage of darkness. Boom! As Helion Zhong's voice fell, a boundless and cold aura suddenly extended into the world. The sky above Chu Hen was immediately covered by dark clouds, covering the sky and covering the sun. Waves of restless spatial rhythms surged over. Darkness like the curtain of night quickly descended, quickly devouring every ray of light in the space where Chu Hen was. The dozen sword beams that flew towards the opponent also collapsed between heaven and earth, turning into fragments that filled the sky and disappeared into the darkness. The bright and beautiful day a second ago had instantly turned into night. The strongest illusion of the illusory rain sect, heavenly cage of darkness. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen found himself in a strange dark space. Everything around him became extremely far away. He could only see the outline of a black shadow, and he could not clearly distinguish the color. The distorted space was like a dream or an illusion. Chu Hen was no stranger to this move. Back at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Sword Codex, Illusory Rain Sect's core disciple, Huanju Xiaorumen, had used it. At that time, her opponent was one of the four great young masters, Cui Qi. At that time, the battle between Xiaorumen and Cui Qi could be said to be a magnificent feast for the eyes. And now, those two people had gone to the Eastern Victory State's Taiqing sect with Wu Yuan, Xilan, Yin Hanlu, and the others. To be honest, the relationship between Huanju, Xiaorumen, and Chu Hen was quite subtle. They were like friends but not friends and enemies but not enemies. Of course, this did not affect the enmity between Chu Hen and the Illusory Rain sect. Hey, it's my turn now. Helion Zhong's cold laughter came from all directions. His body also merged into the endless darkness, completely disappearing in front of Chu Hen. As the sect master of the Illusory Rain sect, Helion Zhong had a lot of combat experience. He had purposely endured Chu Hen's punch in order to increase the distance between him and Chu Hen so that he could use the illusion technique he was most proficient in. Otherwise, with Chu Hen's extremely fast pace in close combat, he would not have had the time to use this heavenly cage of darkness. In an instant, all kinds of destructive power surged towards Chu Hen from all directions. Brothers, your rewards for the past few days have been really awesome. Today, you have received 10,000 rewards again. Thank you to Brother Xingchen for being promoted to the leader of this book's fan ranking. I will continue to work hard. Chapter 744. Illusion, Heavenly Cage of Darkness. The endless dark space was like a dream, showing an illusory and distorted state. Chu Hen was immediately trapped in this strange dark area. Everything in the surroundings had been pulled far away, as if they were separated by a very long distance. It's my turn next. Helion Zhong, who had merged with the darkness, let out a cold and proud smile. In his opinion, as long as he seized the opportunity to use the illusion, Chu Hen would definitely die. Rumble, all kinds of destructive energy surged from all directions around Chu Hen. The scorching sea of fire in front of him was rushing toward him, and the raging torrent and tsunami behind him was attacking. On his right was the unstoppable tens of thousands of lightning pillars, and on his left was the endless rain of light and wind blades. The abnormally violent power of the four symbols appeared in all directions around Chu Hen at this moment. It had to be said that compared to the heavenly cage of darkness that Xiaorumen had used during the Sword Code gathering, the power that Helion Zhong had erupted with was many times stronger. For waves of raging energy rushed towards Chu Hen, who was in the middle, with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn the seas, shaking the heavens. Buzz! Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a powerful and fierce aura erupted from his body. The powerful black light stacked up like a raging wave. Then, Chu Hen's figure moved, leaping even higher into the sky. His body quickly rotated, and the powerful wave of air between the heaven and earth formed a powerful whirlpool tornado. One sword deity, myriad sword calamity. Swish, swish, swish. In the next moment, countless incomparably fierce black sword lights burst out from Chu Hen's body. Like 10,000 swords returning to their origin, they splashed and slashed in all directions. Boom! Bang! The incomparably powerful sword rain fiercely collided with the enormous power of the four symbols. Continuous loud noises resounded, undulating in the dark cage. The rain of fire flew, water splashed, lightning flashed, and wind blades shattered. Although the illusory power here was extremely powerful, it was all blocked by Chu Hen's sword light 100 meters away. The dense rain of swords that filled the sky came one after another, and there seemed to be a huge, illusory, and transparent circular protective sword shield around Chu Hen's body. The protective sword barrier acted like a protective shield, blocking all external attacks. Oomph! A cold shout came from the darkness. Ta! Like two palms intersecting, the sound of rapid hand seals caused faint air waves to ripple. Boom! Immediately after, an even more majestic aura burst forth. A sea of fire, a torrent, a lightning region, and a rain of wind blades, all of them soared into the sky, and the entire darkness prison became abnormally chaotic. Along with a series of earth-shattering roars, a ferocious and terrifying monster rushed out of the four areas filled with violent energy. Scorching heat waves covered the sky and covered the earth. In front of them was a flaming winged tiger that shook the mountains and rivers. Icy coldness caused water to splash in all directions, and then a snow-white WYRM surged through the air. Within the lightning region that was covered in crisscrossing lightning, a lightning bird that was covered in silver light whistled through the air. Moreover, within the rain of wind blades was a heavenly horse that had 4 wings on its back, and it stood on a green light. All 4 of these colossi were over 1 kilometer long, and their ferocious auras were shocking and awe-inspiring. Moreover, the auras of these ferocious beasts were extremely shocking, and it was impossible to distinguish if they were real or formed by an illusory technique. The members of the various powers outside the illusory realm were shocked when they sensed the imposing auras that erupted from the 4 colossi within the darkness prison. Shit! Quickly go help Chu Hen. Su Yurong was the first to be unable to restrain herself from speaking anxiously. The members of the Thousand Cranes sect and Skylink Sword Pavilion couldn't help but reveal solemn expressions as well. Qi Zhang's brows knit together tightly, and he intended to flash towards the darkness prison. However, before he could escape 100 meters away, a blood-red pillar of light soared into the sky in front of him. With the momentum of piercing through the air, it blocked the other party's path. Don't forget that I'm your opponent. Lien Fu's hair was disheveled, and his savage face seemed like that of a devil. How could he allow Qi Zhang to assist Chu Hen at a time like this? The blood-red bone blades that grew out of his palms flickered with a dazzling and bloody aura as they attacked Lien Fu in a dense barrage. Mu Feng, who was locked in fierce battle with Flying Snow Palace, frowned slightly. The former's attacks had clearly become even swifter, and the tempo of the attacks was increasing. Obviously, both sides were trying to buy time for Hellion Zhong. So long as they dealt with Chu Hen first, then the current situation could still be turned around. A fierce battle erupted in the heavens and the earth. All sorts of shock waves exploded within Cloud Luo Gorge, and the ground had sunk down into numerous enormous holes. Ridges after ridges were flattened and reduced to ruins. Senior brother Shan Jun, go help Chu Hen, Hua Shui exclaimed. However, Shan Jun had no intention of interfering at all. He hovered in midair with an awe-inspiring aura as he said, "Don't worry, it's still early. I still want to see the other techniques of the one-sword flying immortal technique." Everyone was slightly stunned. Even the members of the General Alliance who'd flown over to assist Hellion Zhong couldn't help but stop in their tracks. Roar! Woo! At practically the exact same moment, the space within the darkness prison started to tremble and warp indeterminately. For colossi emanated monstrous rage and ferociousness as they charged towards Chu Hen at the center. The fierce rain of swords struck their bodies, but the damage was limited. It was difficult to withstand the aura of these four colossi. Suddenly, a faint light flashed across the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. With a thought, a resonant metallic hum sounded, and a holy sword flashing with green light patterns suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. Hum! Chu Hen formed a sword art with one hand. In the blue sky, sacred sword shone brightly. It circled around Chu Hen's body, and then split into four, transforming into four identical blue sky sacred swords. Swoosh! In an instant, the four blue sky swords shot out in four different directions like arrows released from a bow. Boom! An especially powerful and astonishing sword aura surged out. In the process of meeting the four enormous beasts, the four sky jade swords simultaneously blossomed with a dazzling brilliance that was like the sun. Countless green light patterns were released from the swords and intertwined to form an enormous sword light that was hundreds of meters long. Subsequently, under the astonished gazes of the spectators, four enormous green sword lights struck the four gigantic beasts at the same time. Bang! Boom! In the next second, the entire dark cage suddenly became colorful and dazzling. The gorgeous airwave energy was like a stormy sea, wantonly stacking and blending together. A heavy and violent sound rang out like a thunderstorm. The flame-winged tiger, the white flood dragon, the lightning divine bird, and the four-winged Pegasus all collided with the four sword lights and exploded into pieces. Countless green sword lights flew out in a disorderly manner. Fireballs, waves of water, lightning arcs, wind blades. All sorts of chaotic forces were like a storm that swept across the world, and it almost tore the illusory space apart. He actually blocked it. Everyone from the major factions was shocked. The Generals Alliance, Thousand Cranes Sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion were all amazed. As for the Shura Sect, Illusory Rain Sect, and Otherworldly Spirit Sect, their faces were dark, shocked, and furious. Looks like the Illusory Rain Sect's illusory arts are only SOSO. An indifferent and frivolous laugh came out of Chu Hen's mouth. The space trembled, and a powerful purple fireball erupted from Chu Hen's body. The dense purple light covered the sky and the earth, completely enveloping Chu Hen. Then, Chu Hen's eyelids twitched, and an invisible wave of energy surged out. His pitch-black eyes immediately turned a demonic purple. The power of his demonic eyes was quietly unleashed. In the next moment, in the dark area several hundred meters ahead of him, a blurry figure appeared under Chu Hen's demonic eyes. Chapter 745. So, it was hidden there. An indifferent mocking voice came out from Chu Hen's mouth. Under the probing of the power of the demon eye, the other party had nowhere to hide. Looking at the hazy figure in the area shrouded in darkness for several hundred meters, Chu Hen suddenly raised his hand and flipped it. An extremely dense purple light burst out from between his hands. The dazzling light caused everyone to squint their eyes involuntarily. Amidst the radiant sun-like purple brilliance, there was a scroll-like object that was being flipped open in his palm. Buzz! Immediately after, a golden pillar of light pierced through the sky in front of Chu Hen. The world spun and the space trembled. Roar! Accompanied by a deafening roar of a ferocious beast, a domineering colossus shockingly appeared in the dark cage. The earth-shattering aura of the beast emperor shocked everyone. It was a violent earth bear king that was hundreds of meters tall. Everyone who witnessed this was completely astounded. Where did this violent earth bear king come from? Illusion. That's right. I remember that Chu Hen also mastered some kind of illusion in the past. Without giving anyone time to think, the ferocious, violent Earth Bear King directly burst out with a majestic aura that was comparable to a mountain and charged toward the area where Hellion Zhong was. Roar! A dazzling golden light burst out from its body, and the darkness in the area in front was expelled. Under the illumination of the strong light, Hellion Zhong, who was hidden in the darkness, was faintly visible to everyone. He was hiding there. Faced with the menacing, violent Earth Bear King, Helion Zhong's face revealed a dense disdain. He lifted his eyes, crossed his hands to form a seal, and cried out in a stern voice. "Stinking brat, you're still too inexperienced to use an illusion in front of me." A vigorous and powerful wave of air spread out from Helion Zhong's body. Illusion dispel. Dispel. The thunderous momentum surged abnormally. Vast and mighty white light patterns swept out, with Helion Zhong as the center. Moreover, they gushed towards the body of the violent Earth Bear King. However, the scene that everyone expected to see the illusion unravel did not appear. As soon as the white halo touched the Earth-raging Bear King's body, it immediately shattered. It didn't even cause the slightest bit of damage to the Bear King. What? Helion Zhong's expression changed abruptly. He was greatly shocked in his heart. An unprecedented panic and disbelief surged into his round eyes. This is not an illusion. Roar. Before Helion Zhong could finish his words, the violent Earth Bear King's huge palm, which was as big as a house or palace, whizzed toward him. The dazzling golden light completely covered the Earth-violent Bear King's huge palm, as if it was gathering the power of the sun's divine radiance. Hiss! An incomparably dull explosion exploded between the heavens and the earth. Everyone's hearts could not help but tremble violently. The huge golden bear paw firmly slammed into Helion Zhong's tiny body with the force of a thunderbolt. Under the terrifying pressure, the golden bear paw forcefully blasted Helion Zhong out of the cage of darkness. Then it heavily slammed into a mountain ridge in the region below. Boom! The abnormally violent destructive force caused the mountains to collapse and the ground to crack. The mountain ridge was flattened into ruins. A vast and surging wave swept out along the ground. Rocks collapsed and flew everywhere. The mountain ridge caved in deeply, and the surrounding mountain ridges were flattened into ruins. Countless deep cracks spread out along the mountain walls, forming many faults in the ground. The appearance of this scene caused everyone present to tremble with fear, especially the people from the Illusory Rain sect. They were so frightened that their faces turned ashen. Bang! With a loud bang, the illusory space that trapped Chu Hen exploded like a burst bubble. A golden pillar of light shot into the sky once again, disappearing along with the cage of darkness and the violent Earth Bear King. Illusory space? Or was it real? This time, everyone was even more confused. Even Qi Zhang, Dan Zhun, Mu Feng, and the others were slightly stunned. No one dared to confirm whether the powerful attack on Helion Zhong originated from the illusory technique or some other secret technique. Chaotic rain flew, and light patterns flew everywhere. Chu Hen stood in the sky, like a monarch that controlled the world. The aura he emitted gradually retracted, and his eyes had long returned to their original pitch-black luster. To outsiders, what happened just now was both real and fake. They could not see through it at all. Who knew that after Chu Hen found Helion Zhong's hiding place, he immediately used the revolving myriad beast picture to summon a level 5 beast emperor, the violent Earth Bear King. After the successful attack, Chu Hen teleported his opponent back at lightning speed. The series of transformations could be said to be as smooth as flowing water. It was completed very smoothly. The battle was completed in an instant without anyone noticing. Even if it was over, no one could see through Chu Hen's methods. Under the tumbling rubble in the huge crater, Helion Zhong's clothes were tattered, and his body was covered in blood. He lay on the ground like a beggar. The violent Earth Bear King's full-strength palm strike had directly shattered many of his opponent's bones and meridians. His internal organs had also suffered varying degrees of damage. Lost. He really lost. There was no hope of turning the tables. Helion Zhong trembled as he raised his head to look at the young figure standing proudly in the sky. His eyes were filled with a dense and complicated look. "I need one thing," Chu Hen said with an indifferent expression. Helion Zhong's face showed a hint of surprise. That thing was stolen from the Seven Souls Nation back then. Stolen from the Seven Souls Nation? There was only one possibility. Astral Soul Pearl. Helian Zhong's lips moved slightly. Then he took out a storage ring with trembling hands and held it in his palm. Let go of the illusory rain sex disciple. Helian Zhong murmured softly, as if he was begging Chu Hen. Just as he finished speaking, Helian Zhong raised his palm and used all the strength in his body to strike a broken mountain wall to the side. Boom! Rubble tumbled down. Rocks of all sizes directly smashed onto Helian Zhong's body, instantly burying him in the ground. Sect Master. All the illusory rain sex disciples' eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Every one of them was filled with deep sorrow. Looking at the scene before him, Chu Hen's eyes faintly trembled. He could not help but feel touched. It had to be said that Helian Zhong was a person worthy of respect. In this way, he preserved the last shred of dignity of the illusory rain sex sect master. Swoosh! Following that, a gentle white speck of light flew out from the stone crevice, where Helian Zhong was buried and landed on Chu Hen's palm. After so many years, he had finally obtained his second astral soul pearl. With Helian Zhong's death, the last line of defense in the hearts of the illusory rain sect completely collapsed. The Shura sect and the otherworldly spirit sect also showed signs of irreversible defeat. At this moment, Flying Snow Palace and Lian Zhao were both anxious. Chapter 746. With Helian Zhong's death, the illusory rain sect's last line of defense crumbled. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion, the General's Alliance, and the Thousand Crane sect were unstoppable as they slaughtered their enemies and forced them to retreat. Seeing that the Cloud Luo Gorge was about to be breached, the Azura sect master Lian Qi and the otherworldly spirit sect master Shui Gong's minds were in chaos. The two of them were both shocked and furious. It's time to end this. Mu Feng's eyes emitted a chilling glint as an endless baleful aura burst out from his body. He raised the Buddha demonic sword, and the demonic sword, which was emitting a dazzling blue light, slashed towards the Flying Snow Palace. Shui Fei Gong's expression changed, and he struck out several powerful palm energies in succession to meet the incoming attack. Bang! Sword and palm collided, sending shockwaves into the sky. The surging power was like two torrents colliding, causing space to violently tremble. Shui Gong was forced back by Mu Feng's attack. Buzz, buzz. Immediately after, Mu Feng's figure moved, and the demonic sword in his hand was raised once again. A peerlessly powerful sword aura was released from the Buddha demonic sword. It was like a huge chain as it swiftly wrapped around the sword pagoda that was emitting a desolate aura in the rear region. Huh! Mu Feng roared as the veins on his arm bulged. The powerful sword aura dragged the ancient pagoda and smashed it towards Shui Gong. The 1,000-meter-tall ancient pagoda was like a moving mountain as it tore through the sky. It exploded with a powerful force as it smashed towards Shui Gong. Shui Gong's face changed as he released the power of the 5th rank of the Earth Profound Realm without holding back. He pushed his palms forward and a torrent of shock waves surged forward. Break! This! Space trembled as the collision between mountains and tsunamis shook. A power comparable to that of a mountain and a tsunami immediately exploded high up in the sky, along with a raging wave of true essence. Under the astonished gazes of everyone present, the ancient sword pagoda actually burst apart, turning into endless blue light and shadows. The surging blue light was like an earth-shattering tide, covering heaven and earth. Just at this moment, Mu Feng suddenly charged into the blue light. He quickly brandished the Buddha demon sword in his hand. In an instant, all of the blue light that filled the world gathered around Mu Feng. Then, they transformed into a vigorous cyclone that lingered around Mu Feng's body and rapidly rotated. Each of the blue cyclones was as powerful as the sharpest and most powerful energy swords. Thousands upon thousands of sword energies circling around Mu Feng were like a tornado that was expanding endlessly. They stirred up the world and tore the air apart as they charged toward Drifting Snow Palace. Spiral Sky Demon Slash. An unstoppable force whistled through the air. Before Snowflying Palace could even react, the powerful demonic whirlpool vortex had already arrived in front of him. The rapidly churning blue energy swords launched wave after wave of violent attacks. Drifting Snow Palace felt as if he was in the middle of a giant tornado. The powerful energy swords tore at his body from all directions. His genuine defenses were swiftly shattered, and the blue cyclones tore at his flesh and skin. The intense pain caused Drifting Snow Palace to let out an incomparably panicked roar. In an instant, Drifting Snow Palace was already covered in wounds, and scarlet blood spurted out from his body. Slash! Slash! Along with Mu Feng's explosive shout, a sword ray with an extremely powerful aura traversed the sky. It was as if it was a fleeting image of 1,000 years of time. Shui Fei Gong's pupils violently shrank, and an endless amount of fear instantly filled his entire face. Hiss! In the next instant, the peerlessly powerful sword ray pierced right through Drifting Snow Palace's body. His body was immediately torn to pieces, and his body exploded in the air. What? After Hellion Zhong, Drifting Snow Palace was once again killed on the spot. Everyone in the room felt a chill run down their spines. Sect leader. The few remaining survivors of the otherworldly spirit sect were so furious that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Their faces were deathly pale from shock. Bang! True Yuan surged, and a blood-red light and a golden sacred radiance rippled in another part of the world. The two powerful figures retreated toward the back of the room. Qi Zhang, the sect leader of the Thousand Cranes sect, had an imposing appearance as he stared coldly at the disheveled figure in front of him. Lian Xiao, you've already lost your momentum. Surrender. Surrender without a fight? Ridiculous. Lian Xiao's eyes were blood-red, and they were filled with deep hatred and resentment. Even if I die today, I'll drag someone down with me. Lian Xiao let out a fierce roar, and a monstrous blood qi erupted from his body like a mountain torrent. Rumble! A series of heavy noises rang out, and then, with Qi Zhang at the center, more than a dozen pillars of blood suddenly shot into the sky. Each of the blood pillars was more than 1,000 meters tall, and they exuded an aura that could pierce the heavens. Complicated and mysterious runes flickered on their surfaces. In just a second, the area where Qi Zhang was located was instantly reduced to the center of a violent storm. Exalted blood formation. Lian Zhao's aura soared into the heavens, and his violent aura made him seem like a fiend's. The dozen or so pillars of blood radiated red light, and an aura of death and destruction surged toward Qi Zhang. Stubborn fool. Qi Zhang snorted coldly. Then, a dazzling holy light erupted from his body like the sun. The golden vertical eye at the center of his forehead flickered with sacred light. Buzz! Buzz! As the space around Qi Zhang twisted and swayed, a rain of golden light and sacred light swirled around him. In the sky behind him, the world began to spiral, and then a giant vertical eye appeared before everyone's eyes. This vertical eye was 100 feet tall, like a blazing sun. Heaven on! Qi Zhang exclaimed. Whoosh! As soon as he spoke, the giant vertical eye behind him blossomed with boundless light, causing the sky to dim and the earth to be dyed gold. Whoosh! In a flash, Qi Zhang's eyes narrowed, and a condensed silver beam of light shot out from the vertical eye at the center of his forehead. The peerlessly powerful beam of light was like a divine aurora, sweeping up endless murderous intent as it shot through the air. Thump! There was a loud explosion as the light of the heaven eye pierced through one of the pillars of blood in front of him. A chaotic mist of red light scattered in all directions. The silver light of the heaven eye didn't slow down. After piercing through the blood pillar, it once more attacked Lian Xiao. What? Lian Xiao turned pale with fright. Her pupils, which had shrunk to the size of a needle tip, were filled with panic. The aurora arrived in the blink of an eye. In the next instant, the silver beam of light struck Lian Kuo's chest like a sharp sword, penetrating his body and cutting through his front and back. Bang! Blood sprayed through the air, and dust filled the air. Chapter 747. Bang! A string of blood splattered through the air, an exceptionally glaring sight to behold. The light of heaven's eye that Qi Zhang had unleashed was like a divine sword that had descended from the heavens, piercing through Lin Zhao's chest. At this moment, the Azura sect members, who had been bitterly resisting, all stared with wide eyes. Their bodies and minds had received an unprecedented blow. How could this be? Lin Zhao's eyes widened as he stared at the expanding bloody hole in his chest. Endless disbelief appeared on his face. He had lost. He had lost to someone he had never wanted to lose to in his entire life. Boom! In the next instant, the dozen or so red blood pillars that surrounded Qi Zhang were shattered by a majestic and terrifying impact, and they exploded into chaotic balls of light that filled the sky. It's over. Qi Zhang stared at Lin Xiao in front of him, his clothes fluttering in the wind as waves of energy surged around him. The deaths of Helian Zhong and Snow-Flying Palace had thrown Lin Zhao's mind into chaos, and the moment he lost his composure, it immediately announced his defeat. Lin Zhao's aura rapidly receded, rapidly weakening. He was like a bird with broken wings, fluttering in the air. He had lost. He had completely lost. It was a crushing defeat. From this day forth, the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect would no longer exist in the entire province. Sects that had existed for nearly 1,000 years had fallen at this moment. 2 years ago, the three great sects had attacked Heavenly Sword Pavilion. 2 years later, Heavenly Sword Pavilion had returned. Truly, the 6 paths of reincarnation. Who would the heavens spare? Suddenly, Lin Zhao's eyes flashed with malevolence. He suddenly leaped into the air, pouncing at a young figure on the other side like a wild beast. It's all your fault. I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces, you little bastard. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Lin Zhao's target was none other than Chu Hen. In his opinion, everything that had happened today was ruined by Chu Hen. It was his arrival that had directly led to the destruction of the 3 great sections. Lin Xiao was filled with hatred and resentment. What he needed to do now was to drag Chu Hen down with him before he died. However, Chu Hen's face was calm as he stood where he was. Within his indifferent gaze, there was not the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Roar! Just as Lin Xiao was less than 100 meters away from Chu Hen, a ferocious behemoth swooped down and pounced on Lin Xiao. The huge mouth full of sharp fangs opened and directly bit Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao turned pale with fright, roaring in anger and fear. No, bang! Shi Yan's evil dragon beast's incomparably terrifying bite force completely vented on Lin Zhao's body. Bang! A dull explosion sound resounded. In a flash, scarlet blood rained down from Shi Yan's evil dragon beast's sharp teeth. Pieces of flesh splashed everywhere. Boom! The successive unforeseen events caused everyone present to feel as if they had been struck by lightning. Helian Zhong, Flying Snow Palace, and now Purgatory, the leaders of the 3 sects had all lost their lives in Cloud River Gorge. The tragic fate of Lin Ho had impacted everyone present. Roar! Standing in front of the domineering Shi Yan's evil dragon beast, the young figure seemed to be the king of this world. No one dared to challenge him. The huge beast danced up and down. Chu Hen stood proudly under the sky and waved his sleeve. Flatten the Shura's sect. Flatten the Shura's sect. Boom! Kill! The earth quaked, and the sky changed color. The General League, Thousand Cranes sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion were like ferocious beasts that had broken through a dam. They directly broke through the huge barrier of Cloud River Gorge and attacked the Shura sect with unstoppable force. Roar! Roar! Screech! The scarlet flame tigers, armored earth dragons, tiger crocodiles, and other monstrous beasts quickly occupied the Shura sect's mountain gate. In the sky, the majestic giant eagle legion pierced through the sky, emitting a loud and clear might that shook the heavens. Kill! At this moment, the Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect were completely defeated. They had completely lost the ability to defend themselves. The Union of Generals didn't purposely slaughter the defeated soldiers, but there were still many who were trampled and killed by the demonic beast army. We surrender, but we beg for our lives. The situation was hopeless. There was no hope left. The disciples of the three sects stopped resisting and threw down the weapons in their hands. In the blink of an eye, the Shura sect's mountains and rivers were destroyed. The main peak was occupied, and the entire sect was filled with the troops of the General League, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and Thousand Crane sect. With that, the curtains fell on the sect war. The three sects had achieved a complete victory. An hour later, the peak of the Shura sect's main peak was towering and steep. Standing there, one could see how small the surrounding mountains were. From today onward, the Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect will no longer exist in the 100 Kingdoms prefecture. Chu Hen looked at the vast mountains and rivers in front of him. From afar, the Cloud River Gorge was still covered in blood from the fierce battle. Corpses littered the ground, and blood dyed the gorge red. The three sects had suffered countless casualties. In comparison, the forces of the General League, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and Thousand Crane sect were in a much better state. Especially with the assistance of Hua Shui's Spirit Coalescing Saint Energy Art, their casualties had been reduced to a minimum. Besides Huanju, Xiaorumen, and Shui Qi, Shui and many other top geniuses of the past hadn't made an appearance during the sect war. They must have gone to the Eastern Victory Prefecture's Taiching sect. I wonder how they'll feel when they learn of the destruction of the three sections. The Shura sect has finally been trampled underfoot. Qi Zhang seemed excited and emotional. The enmity between the Thousand Crane sect and the Shura sect that spanned hundreds of years had finally come to an end today. The one who had the last laugh was now standing here. Thank you. Mu Feng turned around and spoke solemnly. Chu Hen faintly smiled, patted the other party's shoulder, and said, "There's no need for such polite words between friends." Mu Feng nodded, and then he revealed a smile for the first time in 2 years. After that, he gazed at Haozi, who stood by Chu Hen's side. "Long time no see. You didn't even have the time to bid farewell to me when you left that day." "Yes." Haozi heaved a sigh of relief and shook his head with slight emotion. "I thought that I would be able to return to all of you very soon, but I never expected that I would be gone for 5 or 6 years." Only Chu Hen knew that Haozi had left with Thief, Rat God. Mu Feng had only found out about it after he heard about it. Now, the mouse that was often bossed around by others had also become an existence that countless people in the 100 Nations continent looked up to. Mu Feng, that frivolous idiot, had also transformed into a sword devil. There was no doubt that no one had experienced more than Chu Hen over the years. From the change of the Sacred Star Dynasty to the rise of the General League today, it was true that the river flows east for 30 years, and then flows west for 30 years. Roar. At this moment, a mighty wave of air rushed toward them. The Sure Yin evil dragon spread its wings and flew toward them. Everyone was slightly startled. Then the other party stretched its huge head toward Chu Hen and opened its huge mouth. A bright silver ball of light slid out from the gap between the Sure Yin evil dragon's teeth. "This is a star soul pearl." Chu Hen's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and caught the bright ball of light. Inside the gorgeous ball of light, there was a pattern of the Big Dipper. Without a doubt, it was a star soul pearl. It seemed that this star soul pearl had always been with Lien Kai. After the Sure Yin evil dragon killed the other party, this star soul pearl also fell into the Sure Yin evil dragon's mouth. Including the one he snatched from Helian Zhong, Chu Hen now had 2 star soul pearls. Including his own Dubby star soul pearl, he had a total of 3. As for the last one, it was probably hidden in the Otherworldly Spirit sect. You should be able to find it after this. Chapter 748. In the next 1 or 2 months, the entire 100 Kingdoms continent experienced an unprecedented upheaval. The news of the destruction of the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect swept through the entire continent like storm. The various factions and dynasties were shocked when they heard the news. The 3 sects were deeply rooted in the continent, and had a long history. In the eyes of countless people, they were unshakable existences. Who would have thought that they would suffer such heavy losses in just a few days? Anyone who heard the news felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Soon, the General Alliance replaced all the territories under the otherworldly spirit sect. The Sky Sword Pavilion took over the resources of the Illusory Rain sect, and the Thousand Cranes sect took over the Azure sect. In less than 2 months, the 3 major sects were divided by the 3 forces. From that day onwards, the 100 Nations continent welcomed the alliance of the General Alliance, the Thousand Cranes sect, and the Sky Sword Pavilion. The alliance of these 3 factions was unshakable in the prefecture region. The General Alliance. In the capital, Chu-Hen, the Tianluo dynasty, Flame Shadow dynasty, and the Sword dynasty have sent a letter of alliance. The 3 sovereigns have expressed their willingness to join our General Alliance for all eternity. Su Yurong found Chu-Hen on top of the General Alliance's city wall and brought him this news. However, Chu-Hen only smiled faintly. He did not show much emotion. This matter was already within his expectations. To be honest, Chu-Hen did not think much of the choice of the 3 sovereigns. The reason they had been hesitant to make a decision was because they were worried that the 3 sects would one day eradicate the General Alliance. Now that the outcome was the opposite, they naturally sent someone to deliver the letter of alliance. Compared to the Misty Wind dynasty and the Boulder dynasty when the General Alliance was first established, these 2 sovereigns were more worthy of befriending. I understand. Sister-in-law, you can handle this matter yourself. There's no need to ask me. Su Yurong was more experienced than him in managing the internal and external affairs of the General Union, so Chu-Hen was at ease leaving this matter to her. Su Yurong nodded, then her eyes couldn't help but light up. Looking at the 4 silver spheres in Chu-Hen's palm, she said, Isn't this the 7 Souls' ancient kingdom's treasure, the Star Soul Pearl? Sister-in-law, you have a good eye. Chu-Hen nodded with a smile. Have you collected all 4? Su Yurong could not help but feel a little astonished. As the overlord of the prefecture region in the past, everyone in the 7 Spirits country knew about the 7 sacred artifacts, the Star Soul Pearl. During the battle at Cloud Luo Gorge, Chu-Hen had obtained the Fectus Star Soul Pearl from Helian Zhong and the Kaiyang Star Soul Pearl from Refiner Puppet. Later on, when he was raiding the otherworldly spirit sect, he found the Migrez Star Soul Pearl. In addition to the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl in Chu-Hen's hands, he had obtained a total of 4. The remaining 3 were in the hands of the Heavenly Cloud Manor, the Immortal Pavilion, and the 7 Souls Palace. The Star Soul Pearl's power was accumulated by stacking them together. A single Star Soul Pearl's power was limited and not particularly strong. However, if several Star Soul Pearls were to be gathered together, then the power that would erupt forth would definitely be multiplied. This was the result of Chu-Hen's research. Refiner Puppet, Helian Zhong, and the Flying Snow Palace were most likely unaware of this matter. Otherwise, if they had used the power of 3 Star Soul Pearls to launch a joint attack, Chu-Hen might not have one so easily. Have you finished reorganizing the otherworldly spirit sect? Chu-Hen asked casually. Almost, Su Yurong replied. In the 100 Nations continent, there were many clans and forces that relied on the otherworldly spirit sect, the Shura sect, and the Illusory Rain sect to survive. Once the 3 sects were destroyed, the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls. Without a leader, many places would fall into chaos. In order to prevent the chaos from spreading, the Alliance of Generals worked together with the Celestial Sword Pavilion and the Thousand Crane sect to seize control of the resources of the sections. At the same time, they also took control of the cities and the regions. To put it simply, the otherworldly spirit sect had become a branch of the Alliance of Generals. Hearing Chu-Hen's question, Su Yurong guessed that he was most likely preparing to return to the victorious East Prefecture. In less than 2 months, the ancient Desolate Heaven region would open. Chu-Hen had to return to Mount Kunliu as soon as possible to make preparations. Most of the things that needed to be done were done. A few days ago, Chu-Hen made some time to pay a visit to the Luo clan in Grand Firmament City. He met with Luo Mengchang's adoptive father, Luo Qiong, and informed him that Luo Mengchang had found the mysterious person who sent her to the Luo clan back then. He was currently cultivating outside and would return to visit him in the future. Luo Qiong sighed deeply upon hearing this. While he was moved, he was also happy that Luo Mengchong had learned of her origins. Chu Hen stayed in the Luo clan for a day. Before he left, he provided the Luo clan with a lot of pills, sage artifacts, sage armor, and other resources. It could be said that he was doing his filial duty to Luo Mengchong. As for Yi Yao, Chu Hen also sent someone to the Yi clan to inform the head of the Yi clan that he already had news of Yi Yao's whereabouts. He told him not to worry and that he would find Yi Yao. Apart from that, Chu Hen did not reveal any other information. After all, the fewer people who knew about Yi Yao and the Valley of Innocence, the better. His return this time could be considered to have completely resolved one of Chu Hen's worries. The three major sects, which were a potential threat, had been eliminated. Now that the Alliance, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the Thousand Crane sect had formed an alliance, they were definitely invincible in the prefecture. Even if Chu Hen was far away in the victorious East Prefecture and had entered the ancient desolate heaven region, there was no need to worry. Alliance Master. At this moment, Qi Wanli hurriedly ran over and said, Sect Master Qi Zhang and Pavilion Master Mu Feng are here. Oh. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. I was just about to go and find them. They came at the right time. Then Chu Hen, Su Yurong, and Qi Wanli walked down the city gate tower and arrived at the guest hall in the front yard. In the hall, Qi Zhang, Mu Feng, Haozi, Hua Shui, and Shanjin were all there. When they saw Chu Hen and the others, they all looked over. You guys came at the right time. I was just about to go and find you. Chu Hen walked in and smiled. Oh. Mu Feng was slightly surprised. You're going back to Mount Kunli, right? Qi Zhang immediately understood. Chu Hen nodded. The ancient desolate heaven region is about to open. We have to go back and prepare as soon as possible. But if the two of you are willing, you can come with me to Mount Kunli. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked. Qi Zhang subconsciously clenched his fists, and his eyes flashed with excitement. There is no one who did not desire the ancient desolate heaven region. It opened once every 1,000 years, and the ancient desolate heaven region was something everyone yearned for. But we're not from Mount Kunliu. I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Mu Feng said in a low voice. That's fine. Shanjin walked forward and raised her head slightly. She said in a clear voice, Chu Hen and I have obtained the highest grade of Mount Kunliu, the Black Token. We have the authority to recruit disciples from outside Mount Kunliu. Everyone's eyes lit up. Previously, Chu Hen completed a sum of 55 billion in the 100 Treasure Tower. The sect's contribution points directly reached 10 million points, and he also obtained the Black Token. As the highest grade Black Token, it had many privileges in Mount Kunliu. One of them was to recruit disciples from outside Mount Kunliu. Once one became a disciple of Mount Kunliu, he had the authority to enter the ancient desolate heaven region through the sect's channels. However, before that, I like to say something. Danjin glanced at Chu Hen as her tone became more solemn. Although everyone wants to go to the ancient desolate heaven domain, it's not a good place. Opportunities and dangers exist side by side. I believe that the two of you should be clear on this point. Whether or not you want to go, please consider it carefully. The meaning of Danjun's words was very clear. Mount Kunliu could provide the quota. After entering the ancient desolate heaven region, life and death, fortune and danger would coexist. No one could guarantee that they would not encounter any unexpected situations. Moreover, it was unknown if they would even lose their lives. Therefore, Shanjun spoke her mind first. Chu Hen nodded slightly, indicating that Shanjun was right. It was because there were many dangers in the ancient desolate heaven region that Chu Hen only considered Qi Zhang and Mu Feng. Otherwise, Chu Hen could choose a group of people from the Alliance of Generals to go together. However, after 8 months of fighting for the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Token, Chu Hen knew how complicated the situation in the Victory East Province was. Even he did not have much confidence that he would be able to gain an advantage in the ancient desolate heaven region. There was no way he could lead the Alliance of Generals to search for opportunities. Only Mu Feng and Qi Zhang could make Chu Hen feel more at ease. I'll go. Mu Feng agreed without hesitation. Qi Zhang also agreed without hesitation. I'm willing to go as well. It could be seen that Qi Zhang yearned for the ancient desolate heaven region. Even though he was one of the most powerful figures in the Hundred Kingdoms region, he knew that the Thousand Crane sect was nothing compared to the Victory East province. Qi Zhang had always yearned for an opportunity. Now this opportunity was right in front of him. Even if he died in the ancient desolate heaven region, Qi Zhang would not regret it. His cultivation had been stuck at this level for many years, and if he wanted to break through again, he would have to ascend to a higher realm. As for Mu Feng, he had gotten his revenge, and the Sky Sword Pavilion had returned to its previous stability. As someone who possessed the Sword Demon Xian physique, how could he be willing to stay in such a small place? Chu Hen nodded his head. That's good. Return to the Thousand Crane sect and Sky Sword Pavilion and report to them. I'll give the orders to the Alliance of Generals as well. The three powers will support each other, and we'll do our best to help each other no matter what happens. Yes. Mu Feng and Qi Zhang nodded solemnly. Chapter 749. Heavenly Sword Pavilion. After 2 years of silence, the entire Sword Pavilion was once again filled with vitality. Many young male and female disciples were flying on their swords in the various cultivation grounds. They were either sparring or exchanging sword skills. Compared to when Mu Xiongcai was in charge of the Sword Pavilion, it was much livelier. After walking across the long bridge made of metal chains, Mu Feng arrived at a secluded mountain. The mountain was extremely quiet and there were not many people around. There was a tall tower built at the peak of the mountain. The tower was quite old and looked old and shabby. On the square outside the gate of the ancient pagoda, a hunchbacked, white-haired old man was sweeping the fallen leaves and dust on the ground. The old man's footsteps were unsteady, and it was difficult for him to sweep the ground. He looked like a candle in the wind and was about to run out of oil. Hearing the approaching footsteps, the old man stopped what he was doing. He slowly raised his head and looked at Mu Feng, who was walking over. Many complicated emotions surged within his pair of turbid old eyes. You look so old. If you can't sweep, then don't sweep. Can't you just sit still? Mu Feng said indifferently. His voice was very calm. The old man did not speak and lowered his head to sweep the ground again. Mu Feng shrugged and smiled helplessly. I'm going to the Eastern Victory Province. The ancient desolate heaven territory that only happens once every 1,000 years is about to open. I want to join the fun. The old man paused for a moment but continued to do what he was doing. You have to hold on until I come back. Don't die the moment I leave. I might be able to find a way to restore your youth in the ancient desolate heaven territory. Mu Feng said. The person in front of him was none other than the previous sect master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Mu Feng's father, Mu Xiongcai. In the battle 2 years ago, Mu Xiongcai burned his origin of life and forcefully executed the Great Pagoda Devil Slaughtering technique in order to defend against the joint attack of the 3 sections. Everyone thought that Mu Xiongcai died in the battle, but that was not the case. However, even though Mu Xiong managed to preserve his life force was almost depleted, making him look like an old man in his twilight years. I have taken care of all the matters in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. During my absence, your illegitimate son, Jian Aonan, will temporarily take over the position of Pavilion Master, although I do not know if he is your illegitimate son or not. After saying that, Mu Feng turned around. From the corner of his eyes, he could not bear to look at the frail body of the other party and softly said, I'm leaving. Father, father. These 2 words had not come out of Mu Feng's mouth for many years. It was as if a stone had been thrown into the calm surface of the water, causing faint ripples to appear. Just as Mu Feng was about 10 steps away, the old but concerned voice came from behind. Take care of yourself. In an instant, Mu Feng's body couldn't help but stop. His legs felt like they were filled with lead and were abnormally heavy. His eyes reddened and he clenched his fists. Then, he hurriedly left without looking back. Mu Xiongcai watched as the other person disappeared at the end of the bridge. Under the ancient pagoda, the hunchbacked figure seemed even more frail. However, There was clearly a hint of concern and love in those muddy eyes. Mo City. According to the time that Chu Hen had agreed on, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang arrived at the Mo City Lord's residence to meet up with Chu Hen, Dan Zhun, and the others. My lords, are you not going to stay in the city for a few more days? This old man will be able to welcome you all to my humble abode. City Lord Mo Ping was still the same as the day he arrived. He wanted to get closer to the others. Naturally, the answer he received was a refusal. Dan Zhun had no time to bother with them. However, due to their enthusiasm, she rewarded them with a few more pills. Then, under the endless gratitude of the people in the Mo City Lord's residence, she activated the teleportation array and returned to Mount Kunliu. Mount Kunliu. The sky was high and the clouds were light. The majestic mountain peak pierced through the clouds, looking like a divine pillar that supported the heavens. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which was many times denser than that of the 100 kingdoms, lingered around the mountain range. It was like a golden, spiritual fog, beautiful like a painting, like a dangerous place. Is this Mount Kunliu? It really lives up to its reputation. Qi Zhang gazed at the beautiful scenery in the distance with a look of awe on his face. Mu Feng's eyes were also filled with amazement. The power of this Mount Kunliu was majestic, far beyond that of the heavenly sword pavilion. Looking at the majestic mountain gate, one could not help but feel a sense of disparity. Dan Jin smiled and said, "Later, let Hua Shui and the others take you around to familiarize you with the environment of Mount Kunli." "No problem," Hua Shui agreed readily. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. This girl was really enthusiastic. He then asked, "Senior brother Dan, do you need to inform the Fairy Hall Master about this?" "Leave it to me." Dan Jin raised her head and answered, "Okay, thank you. You're welcome." Shortly after, everyone returned to their residences. Dan Jin also arranged a place for Mu Feng and Qi Zhang to stay. It was next to Chu Hen and Haozi's residences in the West Wing. Chu Hen, Haozi, Qi Teng, and Lu Qi were no different from the other disciples of Mount Kunliu. Chu Hen could request to have his own independent mountain to stay in. However, the ancient desolate heaven region was about to open, so it did not matter where he stayed. It was fine to stay in the guest house temporarily. "So many things have happened to you in the past 2 years." Sitting in the hall, Mu Feng looked at Chu Hen and said meaningfully, "Yes." Chu Hen let out a long breath. "But it is not easy to be the sect master of Mount Kunliu." Mu Feng laughed. Mount Kunliu was so big, it was easy to imagine how difficult it was to be the sect master. Even so, Chu Hen's ability was still admirable. After chatting for a while, they returned to their rooms to rest. Chu Hen, who was sitting on the bed, felt much more relaxed. He had almost finished all the things he needed to do after returning to the 100 Kingdom state. Now, he could devote himself to preparing for the ancient desolate heaven region. Phew! After Chu Hen let out a deep breath, he moved his palm and took out an exquisite transparent glass bottle. Within the small bottle, there was a trickle of golden spiritual liquid. Tree soul heaven nourishing liquid. This was what Hua Shui had snatched from 8th Elder when they were buying elixirs. It was a natural treasure that had the main effect on the street tree Reiki energy. Chapter 750. As the gate of the ancient desolation heaven realm was about to open, Mount Kunliu and even the entire Dongxing province were stirred up. Experts from various sects, forces, and clans were all preparing for the trip to the ancient desolation heaven realm. Under the expectations of the crowd, this day arrived as promised. Boom! Many disciples of Mount Kunliu had already gathered on the flying immortal peak before the sky was completely bright, accompanied by a bustling and majestic atmosphere of jubilation. Almost all of their faces were surging with unconcealable fervor and hope. Ancient desolation heaven realm. Gluttony feast. West guest house. Suddenly, an especially vigorous spiritual power surged out from a certain room. The expressions of Mu Feng, Haozi, Shan Zhen, and the others, who were waiting outside the guest courtyard, changed slightly. Each and every one of them revealed astonished expressions. What a powerful Reiki energy! Qi Zhang, the master of Thousand Cranes sect, raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "It seems that he has reached the later stage of spiritual tattooist. This guy really doesn't want to leave anything behind." Danjun nodded with a smile. "You have to thank me," Hua Shui said in a hurry to take credit. She snatched the tree soul heaven nourishing liquid from the eighth elder. If it wasn't for Hua Shui, Chu Hen wouldn't have known that there was such a thing in the world. Compared to Chu Hen's martial arts realm, the Reiki energy needed to be strengthened. Very quickly, the powerful aura coming from the other side gradually retracted. Then, the door that had been closed for more than a month opened, and a high-spirited young man with an extraordinary bearing walked out. His handsome face exuded an aura that made people look up to him. Looking at the crowd outside, Chu Hen smiled. "Let's go." After a while, Chu Hen, Mu Feng, Dan Jun, and the others arrived at the fairy peak. At this moment, the entire flying immortal peak was filled with people. Many disciples of the Kunliu Gate had gathered on the plaza of the flying immortal peak. Seeing Chu Hen and the others arrive, everyone looked at them strangely. On the other hand, Nangonghao of the Demon Slayer Palace and Lung Lingyan of the Void Palace had a hint of indifference in their eyes. "Do you have a grudge against that guy?" Mu Feng pointed at Nangong Ju and said casually, "The moment he saw you, his hostility rose." Chu Hen smiled, but didn't say anything. He just shook his head and didn't say anything. However, he was still a little surprised by Mu Feng's perception ability. After awakening the sword demon mystic body, Mu Feng's strength in all aspects had been perfected and strengthened. Buzz! At this moment, 3 dazzling silver light pillars descended from the sky like lightning, steadily landing on the stone platform in the middle of the square. A circle of surging airwaves spread out in all directions like a tide. Everyone on the square retreated without exception. Soon after, the 3 pillars of light quickly converged downwards and turned into 3 powerful figures with extraordinary auras and majestic auras. "Greetings, 3 palace masters." Everyone present bowed and saluted with reverence on their faces. "Forget it." The Demon Slayer Palace Master, Wen Liang, waved his hand. His voice was like thunder, powerful and resonant. "Thank you, Palace Master." The Palace Master of the Flying Immortal Temple, Qi Hanyu, subconsciously glanced at where Chu Hen and the others were. When she saw Mu Feng and Qi Zhang beside Chu Hen, she couldn't help but show a hint of surprise on her face. Previously, Dan Jun had already reported to her that Chu Hen had recruited 2 outsiders from the 100 Kingdoms Prefecture to enter the Kunliu Mountain. At that time, she didn't pay much attention to it. Now that she saw it, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang were 2 talents. This was especially true for Mu Feng. The aura that was faintly emitted from his body caused Qi Hanyu to feel a slight chill. What a powerful, profound physique bloodline limit. Qi Hanyu murmured in her heart. This kid's future achievements definitely wouldn't be too low. This trip to the ancient, desolate heaven domain will be led by me and the Palace Master of the Flying Immortal Temple. A thunderous voice echoed from the Palace Master of the Flying Immortal Temple, Wen Liang. The moment he said that, the entire square couldn't help but burst into an uproar. For 2 Palace Masters to personally lead the team, this was really a big move. Even Chu Hen was surprised. He originally thought that only 1 Palace Master would lead the team. He didn't expect 2 Palace Masters to lead the team. One could imagine how much importance they placed on the ancient desolate heaven domain. With Wen Liang and Qi Hanyu leading the team, this meant that the Palace Master of the Void Palace, Xie Wuhe, would stay in the sect. Xie Wuhe's expression looked very calm, without much fluctuation. It seemed that the 3 of them had already gone through a strict discussion. The 3 Palace Masters were actually very clear that the ancient desolate heaven domain was filled with opportunities and dangers. Not many people could say that they would be able to come and go as they pleased in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Apart from their own desire for the ancient desolation heaven domain, the 2 Palace Masters were also here to ensure the safety of the genius disciples. According to their original plan, it wasn't impossible for the 3 Palace Masters to come together. But on second thought, If they didn't leave a hall master here to hold down the fort, if their enemies were to take advantage of this time to attack the mountain gate, their nest would probably be destroyed. Since ancient times, the victorious East State didn't lack such precedents. Of course, there was another point. If an unimaginable accident happened to the team heading to the ancient desolate heaven domain, then the palace master of the Void Palace would be in charge. At that time, Siawuha would be the palace master of Mount Kuan-Lu. Other than the palace master of the Void Palace, staying in Mount Kuan-Lu, not all the disciples could head to the ancient desolate heaven domain. Although a complete set of 4 heaven and earth black-yellow tokens could allow the entire sect to enter the heaven domain, those with weak cultivation would only be a burden if they entered the heaven domain. After a few months of selection, Mount Kuan-Lu finally selected over 1,000 elite disciples to form the strongest team, the Kuan-Lu team, to head to the ancient desolate heaven domain. Is there anything you want to say? Shihan Yu turned around and looked at Siawuha. Siawuha smiled faintly and replied without any hesitation. I hope that all the juniors will return. As for the 2 of you, forget it. Humph. When Liang snorted coldly. Your wishful thinking is really good. Once the 2 of us die, Mount Kuan-Lu will be yours. That's right. That's exactly what I wanted. Ha ha. Siawuha laughed. Shihan Yu smiled and shook her head. There was a complicated look in her eyes as she said softly, Siawuha, if I really can't return, please help me find Gong Yangyu. Shihan Yu's words caused the surrounding to fall into silence. I don't have the time to help you find him. If you want to find him, come back and find him yourself. Siawuha looked away as a disdainful sneer appeared on his face. All right, let's cut the nonsense. The Devil Slaughter Palace Master seemed to be in high spirits. He waved his hand and shouted, The ancient desolate heaven domain is about to open. The 1,000 disciples from Mount Kuan-Lu, please follow us. Mount Qingsheng, depart. Mount Qingsheng, rumble. In an instant, the entire Mount Kuan-Lu was filled with a mighty aura. Over 1,000 elite disciples from Mount Kuan-Lu soared into the sky and revealed their powerful auras. Roar! Subsequently, a few majestic one-horned Pegasi galloped from the back of the flying celestial peak. These Pegasi were pulling 2 luxurious open carriages. The flying celestial palace master and the Devil Slaughter Palace Master turned into a ray of light and soared into the sky. They landed on the 2 carriages and sat on the wide chairs. Let's go. Soon after, the 2 hall masters gathered the strongest youths of Mount Kunliu and headed towards the direction of Mount Qingsheng in a grandiose manner. I'm looking forward to it. Chu Hen raised his brows as his eyes burned with passion. Mu Feng, Hao Zi, Qi Zhang, Shan Zhen, Hua Shui, and the rest were also extremely excited. Now that they had made it to the ancient desolate heaven domain, it was easy to imagine how excited they were. Let's go. Without much hesitation, the group flew into the sky and followed the huge group. Numerous swift and fierce figures streaked across the sky like incomparably sharp eagles. They blotted out the sky and covered the sun with an imposing manner that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. As for the disciples from Mount Kuan-Lu who were not fated to participate in the trip to the ancient desolate heaven domain, their eyes were filled with envy. The world had never been fair. Only strength could prove everything. Looking at the group that had turned into black dots in the sky, the Void Palace Master, Siawuha, placed his hands behind his back. His dignified eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Ancient desolate heaven domain, Prefecture Region War, Gathering of Heroes. 9 Heavens Dragon Roar. Chapter 751. Qingcheng Mountain. Qingcheng Mountain was beautiful and enshrouded in spiritual mist. The undulating mountain range was like an ancient dragon in slumber. At this moment, the Qingcheng Mountain was already crowded with people. The teams from various sects and forces were occupying a mountain peak. They were gathered here for no reason other than to wait for the door to the ancient desolation heaven domain to open. I've been waiting for this day. I'm so excited. What are you so excited for? With your cultivation base, you probably won't be able to return from the ancient desolation heaven domain. Screw you. Do you know how to talk? Who knows if I'll be lucky and discover a secret realm by accident. From then on, I'll be able to make a comeback. Heh, you won't get such a good opportunity. Although the atmosphere in the Qingqing Mountain was lively, the teams from the various sects did not bother with each other. They were only interacting with their own people. Not only that, but there seemed to be a sense of hostility between the various sects and clans. After all, once they entered the ancient Desolation Heaven domain, almost all the sects and clans would be competitors. Whoosh, suddenly, a powerful wave of air swept in their direction. Everyone was slightly shocked as they raised their heads to look at the sky. They saw a few single-horned Pegasi that emitted a holy aura pulling two luxuriously dressed carriages. When the crowd clearly saw the two people in the carriage, they could not help but reveal some amazement on their faces. It's the Flying Celestial Palace Master and the Devil Slaughter Palace Master from Mount Kunliu. Mount Kunliu actually sent out two Hall Masters. What a surprise. It's normal. I think it's normal even if all three Palace Masters came. The ancient Desolation Heaven domain is so tempting. In fact, many sects have sent out their full strength. You're right. It seems like Mount Kunliu is being conservative. Whoosh. Amidst the clamorous discussions, the team from Mount Kunliu landed on a relatively empty mountain peak. Similar to the other sects, Mount Kunliu did not greet or interact with any of the forces after they arrived. The other forces in the surroundings did not make any moves as well. They merely glanced around and did not do anything. There are so many people here. Hua Shui scanned her surroundings. As far as her eyes could see, the mountains were filled with people. Moreover, there were many people with powerful auras hidden within this endless crowd. Chu Hen could even vaguely sense that there were a few people whose auras were no weaker than Shi Hanyu and Wen Liang, the two Hall Masters. It had to be said that the victorious East region was truly a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. For example, the sect master of the Thousand Cranes sect, Qi Zhang. He was a top-rate expert in the 100 Kingdoms, yet he was no different than a passerby when he stood amongst the group from Mount Kunli. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. Do all the sects in the victorious East State head to the ancient desolate heaven domain from here? It was Mu Feng who asked. No. Shanjin shook her head and explained in a low voice. Qingqing Mountain is only one of the gates that have been opened. There are other passageways that have been opened in the other regions of the Dongxing State. Mu Feng nodded. After all, it was his first time in the victorious East State, so he did not know much about the geography of the region. The sects and forces in the victorious East State were divided according to their regions. At that time, the passageways that led to the ancient desolate heaven domain opened at the same time, and everyone was sent in together. Mount Kunliu was in the region where Qingqing Mountain was located, where Innocence Valley and Taiqing sect. Chu Hen asked Shanjun in a low voice. Innocence Valley, where Yi Yao was the thing that Chu Hen was most worried about. It was also the most important task that he had to shoulder after entering the ancient desolate heaven domain. As for Taiqing's sect, Mentor Shi Lan and the top geniuses of the 100 Kingdoms were all recruited there. If things went well, it would be a fortuitous encounter. If things went badly, they would become Taiqing's sect's cannon fodder, especially since both Innocence Valley and Taiqing sect were among the top 10 forces in the victorious East State. If he wanted to deal with these two forces and sects, he would have to make all sorts of preparations. First of all, he had to find out where the two sects were. Naturally, Shanjin knew what Chu Hen was thinking. She looked around without batting an eyelid. Then, she shook her head and answered in a low voice, They're not here. None of them are here. Honesty Valley is in the southwest of the province, so they should be in Flag Cloud City right now. Taiqing sect is in the southeast, near returning Eagle Gorge. After listening to her, Chu Hen could not help but shake his head. He had never even heard of these two places. As it turned out, his understanding of the victorious East State was only vague. Don't be too anxious. Let's wait until we reach the ancient desolate heaven domain, Shanjin said. All right. Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief. Now that it had come to this, he could only take one step at a time. He only hoped that Yi Yao could try her best to delay Shintu Yi Tian until Chu Hen met up with her. As time passed, the number of teams that arrived at Qingcheng Mountain increased. Apart from the people from the major sects and clans, there were also many people from all walks of life. They were actually fighting for the heaven and earth black-yellow tokens in the surrounding areas. The various forces only looked on coldly from the sidelines at such a scene that was neither big nor small. At a time like this, the only ones who were anxious were those who hadn't obtained the pass. Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous might that shook the heavens exploded in the sky above Qingcheng Mountain without any warning. In the next moment, the wind howled in all directions, and the sky darkened in an instant. Endless dark clouds covered the sky and covered the earth, covering the sky above Mount Qingcheng. They slowly rotated and turned into an incomparably vast and mighty storm nebula. A powerful and terrifying aura gathered above everyone's heads, suppressing them to the point that they could hardly breathe. The storm nebula continued to expand in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to thousands of feet wide. Subsequently, a myriad of golden rays of light blossomed from the center of the nebula vortex. It was as if a dazzling sun had spilled out from within it. Countless rays of dazzling divine golden light dyed the sky and illuminated the faces of everyone below, causing them to sparkle brilliantly. Under the scorching gazes of countless people, an incomparably huge scene gradually appeared in the sky. The magnificent scene was like a mirage. The world lost its color, as if a miracle had descended. What appeared in front of everyone was a huge heaven-opening gate. The circular gate was covered in complicated and mysterious ancient numbers. The runes and numbers engraved on them were like interweaving silver vines of light, flickering with bright and mysterious patterns. This scene had happened a year ago as well. However, at this moment, everyone felt that it was extremely real. The dazzling gate was like a heavenly wheel that floated in the sky. When it opened, the ancient desolate heaven territory would be reopened. The ancient desolate heaven territory is finally here. At this moment, everyone stood up and clenched their fists tightly. Their expressions were all moved. Even the head of the flying immortal palace, Qi Hanyu, and the head of the demon-slaying palace, Wen Liang, could not help but stand up from the wide seats in the carriage. The two of them stared at the gate. They had been waiting for this day for a long time. Immediately after, the huge golden door that looked like a divine formation slowly rotated clockwise. The mysterious runes on it quickly lit up, releasing bright and beautiful light patterns. The world spun and the sky was stirred. The gate to the ancient desolate heaven territory is about to open. This is great. After waiting for so many years, this moment has finally arrived. Excitement. Unprecedented excitement. Everyone's eyes seemed to be flickering with flames. They were so excited that their blood was boiling and their hearts were about to jump out of their bodies. Very soon, under countless excited gazes, the giant golden door slowly opened from the middle as it rotated, splitting into two. The way the golden gate opened was very strange. The middle of the gate was not vertical like normal gates. Instead, there was a lock at the top, bottom, left, and right. The two gates separated and the gate to the ancient desolate heaven territory opened. Along with the divine golden light, an ancient and desolate aura that seemed to have been sealed for countless years rushed out from the gap of the gate towards the people below. 10,000 rays of golden light poured down, and everyone in the Qingcheng Mountain felt as if they were bathed in the holy light. Swish, swish. Following that, dozens of figures with extraordinary auras flew out from behind the giant golden door. The aura released by these people was like an unshakable mountain. These people were all wearing sacred armor that flowed with silver light and held long spears in their hands. A few of them were even wearing golden sacred armor. They were majestic, and their auras were astonishing. They were like the legendary heavenly soldiers that guarded the heavenly palaces. Chapter 752. What's that? Looking at the dozens of powerful figures that flew out from behind the huge golden door, the faces of the various factions on Qingcheng Mountain below revealed a lot of caution and faint reverence. These people were all wearing colorful sacred armors and holding long spears that were surrounded by powerful light runes. His grave and stern face, his sharp gaze, and the awe-inspiring aura he exuded were like the legendary heavenly soldiers and generals. Who are they? In the group on Kuan Lu Mountain, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but clench his fists. He suddenly recalled the scene a few months ago when he met Tuoba Shah and was chased by a powerful man in golden sacred armor. The aura of these people was very similar to the ones he met back then. They're the guardians of the ancient Desolation Heaven region, the Light Sacred Clan. Danjun's voice rang in Chu Hen's ears. Heavenly Region Guardian? Light Sacred Clan? Chu Hen's heart involuntarily surged with a few simple words. The Sacred Clan. Just these two words were enough to make people revere them from the bottom of their hearts. Sacred Clan? Does their race inherit the bloodline limit of the sacred body? Mu Feng asked subconsciously. Danjun nodded solemnly. A hint of reverence and passion faintly surged between her brows. That's right. The Light Sacred Clan is one of the most ancient clans in the Eastern continent. They're also the inheritors of the Saint bloodline limit. Danjun's explanation was very vague. It was obvious that he did not know much about the so-called Heavenly Region Guardian. However, from his words, it was obvious that he was afraid of the Light Sacred Clan. The expression on Chu Hen's face became even more complicated and grim. If the people who took Tuoba Shah away were really from the Light Sacred Clan, then it would be really bad. At the same time, Chu Hen could not help but feel confused about the mysterious item in the metal box that Tuoba Shah had given him. What exactly was hidden in it? What would cause the Light Sacred Clan to attack Tuoba Shah? Sorry for the long wait. A slightly indifferent and calm voice came from the golden-armored middle-aged man in the lead. His indifferent tone did not reveal any emotion, and his eyes were as calm as the water in an ancient well. My name is Luo Tong. I'm a person in charge of Azure City Mountain's Heavenly Territory Passage. I believe everyone has been waiting for this day for a long time. Hua. It was a simple sentence, but it was like a stone thrown into the water, causing ripples in everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. Seeing the changes in everyone's expressions, a frivolous smile rose from the corner of Luo Tong's mouth as he continued. Looks like everyone is a little impatient. That's right. The ancient desolate heaven domain has a power that all of you yearn for. As the protector of the ancient desolate heaven domain, I have to tell you that once you enter, none of you will be restricted. There wouldn't be any restrictions. This also meant that the various sects and families could do whatever they wanted in the ancient desolate heaven domain. I won't waste any more words. Everyone knows the rules. Let's begin. Buzz. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong spatial fluctuation appeared in the sky. The giant golden door released countless rays of gentle golden light. From afar, the giant door looked like a long and deep path leading to the heavens. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following that, a team from a sect on a mountain soared into the sky. The size of this team was not any smaller than the team from Mount Kuan Lu. Moreover, the aura that the person in the lead emitted was not any weaker than the two palace masters from Mount Kuan Lu. Rin Jun from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion greets Lord Luo Tong. A middle-aged man who looked like he was in his 40s cupped his fists at Luo Tong and presented 4 heaven and earth black-yellow tokens with both hands. Luo Tong moved his palm and casually took the 4 heaven and earth black-yellow tokens into his hand. However, he merely glanced at them briefly. Pavilion Master Rinjun, how many people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion are here? 1,200 people. The middle-aged man answered without hesitation. Is that so? Are you sure? I'm sure. Luo Tong smiled and raised his eyelids. However, it seems like you have more than 1,200 people here. What? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. However, in the next instant, with a swoosh sound, along with a rapid wind-breaking momentum, a shadow of flowing light suddenly burst out from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team. I don't believe that I can't go to the ancient desolate heaven domain without a heaven and earth black yellow token. The person was extremely fast. He left a series of afterimages in the sky as he charged towards the gate of the ancient desolate heaven domain like a ghost. However, when the person was less than 50 meters away from the giant golden door, a silver light shot across the sky and struck the person's body like a meteor. Bang! A heavy muffled sound erupted in the sky as a powerful chi wave spread out in the sky, causing a rain of blood to splatter. A short and hurried, miserable shriek caused one's heart to tremble violently. That person's body directly shattered and exploded into a bloody mist. At the place where the person died, a guard in silver armor held a spear. His cold face gave off a dangerous aura. In the blink of an eye, blood was shed. In an instant, the expressions of the people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion changed drastically. Pavilion Master Rinjun's face turned pale as he hurriedly said, "Lord Luo Tong, please calm down. We were careless. Please forgive us." Luo Tong continued to smile. He looked at the people from the various sects and said, "Looks like I have to repeat myself. No one is allowed to use the Heaven and Earth Black Yellow token as a pass. All sects are aware of their subordinates. If anyone tries to pass them off as genuine, the entire sect will be disqualified." Hiss. Although Luo Tong was smiling when he said this, everyone in the room felt a chill run down their spines. Immediately, the teams from the various forces and clans began to count the number of people in their sects in case someone with ill intentions mixed in with them. Their way of doing things was really swift and decisive. Seeing this, Chu Hen could not help but shake his head. The Light Sacred Clan was one of the most powerful clans in the Eastern Land. Indeed, they would not allow anyone to challenge their dignity. However, seeing that Luo Tong did not blame the Soaring Clouds Pavilion immediately, the people from the Pavilion Master Renjun heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Lord Luo Tong. Let's go in." Luo Tong raised his hand slightly and made a gentle gesture of please. Renjun's eyes lit up. After nodding and bowing, he took the lead and turned into a stream of light as he flew toward the giant golden door. The people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion followed closely behind and flew toward the passage to the ancient desolation heaven domain like a flock of eagles. Buzz, countless rays of dazzling golden light shone from behind the giant golden door. The people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion seemed to have merged with the holy light of the divine sun. In an instant, they turned into black spots and disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 753. In the sky above the 9 heavens, the wind swirled around the clouds. The holy light emitted from the giant golden door was like the sun in the sky. The dazzling light inscriptions bathed the entire Qingcheng Mountain in holy light. Under the passionate and excited gazes of the people from the various sects and forces, the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team was the first to pass through the endless path behind the golden formation door and enter the ancient desolation heaven territory. The Light Saint Clan's team was like the divine guards guarding the entrance of the heaven palace. They emitted a powerful aura that struck fear in the hearts of the people. Luo Tong looked at the people below and spoke in a light tone. Next, whoosh, as soon as he finished speaking, another team of more than 1,000 people soared into the sky, sweeping up a vast and mighty aura that surged into the sky. Lung Song from the Heavenly Sea sect greets everyone. Just like before, the leader of the team eagerly took out 4 heaven and earth black yellow tokens and handed them to Luo Tong. Luo Tong took them and asked sect leader Lung, "How many people from the Heavenly Sea sect are here?" Lung Song was stunned. The disciples behind him were also shocked. They looked at each other and their surroundings. When they saw no strangers had mixed into the team, Lung Song finally replied in a relaxed tone, 1,350 people. Luo Tong smiled. "Don't be nervous, sect leader Lung. I just want to make sure." Lung Song wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and cursed inwardly. "Damn it, how can I not be nervous? We might die if we're not careful. Please." Luo Tong raised his hand with a smile. Lung Song nodded and cupped his fists. Then he waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Whoosh, whoosh. Subsequently, The Heavenly Sea-Sex team followed the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team into the golden formation door and disappeared in the dazzling holy light. Soon after, powerful teams with extraordinary auras rose into the sky and handed over their heaven and earth black-yellow tokens in an orderly manner. After that, Luo Tung did not ask about the number of people. But even so, every sect and family would conduct a strict and thorough investigation before this to ensure that no one would come to make up the numbers. As the guardians of the ancient Desolation Heaven territory, everyone was in awe of the Light Saint clan. As time went by, the number of people in Mount Qingsheng decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, many lone travelers who held heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens were also making their final preparations. Almost there, in front of the Mount Kunlu group, Demon Slaughter Palace Master Wen Liang raised his cold eyes and glanced at the people behind him. Count the number of people and see if there are any strangers mixed in. Yes, Home Master. Everyone agreed, and scanned their surroundings to see if there were any strangers they did not know. Of course, with Mount Kunliu's prestige in the Dongsheng region, no one would dare to mix in with this group. The only unfamiliar ones were the two new members, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang. Palace Lord, the number of people is just right. A middle-aged man with the rank of an elder said with certainty. When Liang nodded, he immediately exchanged glances with Qi Hanyu, the master of the Flying Celestial Hall, and the two of them took the lead to fly up on their magnificent carriages. Everyone from Mount Kunliu followed closely behind. The mighty team released a powerful aura that suppressed everyone present. As expected of the team from Mount Kunliu, their aura is so F*King strong. To be honest, if that sect leader Gong Yang didn't leave, Mount Kunliu's strength could easily be ranked in the top 10 in the Dongsheng region. In fact, they're not far from the top 10. While the people from the various sects discussed below, the people from Mount Kunliu arrived at the area below the door of Apocalypse. Mount Kunliu? Haha. As far as I know, that Gong Yang is considered an important person in the Dongsheng region. Luo Tong held his chin with one hand and muttered to himself, "This is our pass." Qi Hanyu, the master of the Flying Celestial Hall, flipped her hand and flicked her slender fingers. 4 heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens floated towards Luo Tong like feathers. Luo Tong casually took the heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens and said, "It seems that the rumored Gong Yang isn't here. I wonder where he is. Luo Tong, would like to meet him." The people from Mount Kunliu were stunned. Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang looked at each other. The latter cupped his fists and said, "Sect leader Gong Yang is traveling and hasn't returned yet." "Oh, he's not in Mount Kunliu?" Luo Tong was slightly surprised. This person didn't know that sect leader Gong Yang had already left the Dongsheng region. Chu Hen, who was in the team, was slightly confused. It seemed like there wasn't a force in the Dongsheng region that didn't know about this, right? However, Chu Hen quickly understood. The reason was simple. The Light Sacred Tribe was one of the most ancient and powerful races in the East Continent, but they weren't a force in the Dongsheng region. The Light Sacred Tribe wouldn't bother to ask about what happened here. Or rather, they disdained to ask about it. The East Continent was as vast as the Sea of Stars. The Dongsheng region was just one of the places that the Light Sacred Tribe had touched. However, it had to be said that Gong Yang, who was known to the Light Sacred Tribe, was not an ordinary person. "Please." Luo Tong didn't say much after knowing that Gong Yang wasn't in Mount Kunliu. "Thank you." Wen Liang cupped his fists in acknowledgement. Then, he and Qi Hanyu took the lead and led the people from Mount Kunliu towards the giant golden door. This day had finally come. This was the thought that everyone from Mount Kunliu had in mind. Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, Shan Zhen, Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, as well as Chu Hen and the others, were all filled with fervent excitement. The giant awakened heaven gate that spanned thousands of feet was like a god that shrouded the sky above everyone's heads. The sacred radiance that shone down from within was dazzling. Everyone charged into the thousands of light beams and became one with the light behind the giant gate. In the next instant, when he entered the light, Chu Hin only felt the sky and earth spin. An extremely strong pulling force was currently pulling his body, as if he was drawn into a storm whirlpool. However, this feeling made him feel incomparably relaxed, without the slightest bit of nervousness. Roar! Suddenly, at this moment, a deafening roar of a ferocious beast resounded in the sky above Mount Qingcheng. In the next moment, a giant beast with a wingspan of more than 1,000 meters came piercing through the wind and clouds. This was a ferocious beast with a head that resembled the legendary Qilin. However, the difference was that this giant beast had an extra pair of wings, and its shape was closer to that of a horse. Handsome Qilin beast. A level 9 beast emperor was a terrifying existence comparable to a level 9 profound world realm expert. Chapter 754. Roar! The sudden appearance of the Qilin beast set off a strong gust of wind and chi waves. The people around Qingcheng Mountain were shocked by the sudden appearance of the Qilin beast. It's a handsome Qilin beast? This, a 9th order beast emperor. This is the first time I've seen a demonic beast of this level. Roar! Under the gazes of the crowd that were filled with bewilderment, the Qilin beast traversed the sky with an imposing aura that shot into the heavens, and its vast ferocious might that could topple mountains and overturn the seas dragged out an expanse of powerful ripples in the sky. Like an aurora, it rushed towards the giant golden door in the sky. Buzz! At the same time, the Golden Gate released a dazzling radiance that swept everyone from Mount Kun Lu's team into it, instantly disappearing without a trace. As soon as the people from Mount Kunliu left, the brave Qilin beast also stopped moving. It circled around the area below the giant golden door like a falcon that had lost its target. It let out a low growl, showing that it was unwilling to give up. At this moment, not only were the people from the major forces at the foot of Qingcheng Mountain exchanging glances, but even Luo Tong and the dozens of Holy Guard experts from the Light Sacred clan were confused. What's wrong with this beast now? Luo Tong frowned and said unhappily. At this moment, a silver-armored Saint Guard flew up and whispered to Luo Tong, "My lord, this handsome Qilin beast went on a top-secret mission with Lord Songli a few months ago." Top-secret mission? Luo Ting narrowed his eyes and asked curiously, "What top-secret mission?" Haha, sir, you're making things difficult for me. What top-secret mission? How would I have the right to know? However, I heard that the higher-ups weren't satisfied with the mission Lord Songli carried out. He was even punished for it. The silver-armored Holy Guard said mysteriously. Oh, upon hearing this, Luo Tong was even more surprised. Even Song Li had not completed that task. This was truly unexpected to him. Luo Tong knew very well how strong Song Li was. If even he failed, it could be seen that the mission was no small matter. Sir, the silver-armored Holy Guard continued, this Qilin beast has an extremely sharp and powerful sensory ability. It will never forget the aura it remembers. I'm guessing that one of the people who went in just now is most likely related to the mission that Lord Songli carried out last time. Luo Tong could not help but fall into deep thought after listening to the other party's words. He looked at the Qilin beast that was still hovering under the giant golden door, and many complicated emotions surged between his brows. The silver-armored guard continued, "Sir, although we don't know what top-secret mission Lord Songli is carrying out, I'm sure it's something important. If the handsome Qilin beast really remembers that person's aura, we can follow it and find that person. When that time comes, it'll be a great merit." They were discussing in low voices. The teams of the major sects and families in the area below were getting impatient, but even so, no one dared to rashly step forward to disturb them. After some thought, Luo Tong shook his head. "Put away your thoughts. Sir, just do your job well. Since it's a top-secret mission, the higher-ups won't let us get involved. Moreover, this is only your guess. What if you're wrong? I don't need to say anything more." The silver-armored guard's face turned pale. He bowed and said, "Sir, I was wrong. I spoke too much. I'll pretend that you didn't say anything." "Yes, thank you, sir." Then, the silver-armored guard hurriedly returned to the area where he was earlier. Luo Tong's eyes narrowed. He lifted his head to look at the Qilin beast that had spread its wings and left. In the end, he shook his head. He knew very well that he had to be careful no matter what he did in the Divine Light clan. I'm really curious. Even an expert like Song Li failed to carry out a mission. Phew. Luo Tong let out a sigh of relief and stopped thinking about other things. He looked at the crowd below and said, "Next." Buzz. The world spun and space shifted. The group of people from Mount Kunliu felt like they had passed through a long tunnel of time. Endless golden lights flashed around them. This feeling was very similar to when they used the teleportation array. Wah! After an unknown amount of time, a bright golden light flashed in front of everyone. Immediately, their feet touched the ground, and their bodies landed firmly on the ground. What followed was a completely new and refreshing environment. The mountains and rivers in front of them were majestic and lush with vegetation. A natural moat that stretched from east to west appeared in front of them. The cliffs looked like they were cut by a knife, and the waterfalls looked like the Milky Way. The sky was high, and the earth was wide. The craggy mountain rocks looked like the work of the gods. At this moment, everyone from Mount Kunliu was at the peak of a towering mountain. They looked down at the mountains and witnessed the auspicious signs of heaven and earth. Is this the ancient desolation heaven realm? Why is it a little different from what I imagined? How is it different? I don't know. I have an indescribable feeling. Hearing the clamor of the disciples behind him, the demon-slaying palace master Wen Liang frowned and said, "This is only a corner of the ancient desolation heaven realm. There are dangers everywhere. Don't be careless." After being scolded by Wen Liang, everyone woke up. Over the past thousands of years, the ancient desolate heaven domain had never been known as a good place. Even though it appeared to be a peaceful and desolate place, there was something strange about the peaceful appearance. The master of the flying immortal palace, Qi Hanyu, revealed a serious expression. She turned around and said, "Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, Dan Jun, Chu Hen, the four of you, go and investigate the surrounding situation." The moment she spoke, Qi Hanyu chose the four strongest disciples from Mount Kunliu. One could imagine how serious she was about the ancient desolation heaven realm. "Yes," the four of them replied in unison. "The main thing is to investigate the terrain. Once you discover any danger, retreat immediately." Qi Hanyu added, "Disciple understands." Immediately, Nangong Ju and Lung Lingyan left first. The two of them headed towards the east and west respectively. "Be careful, you too," Hua Shui pouted and reminded them with concern. "Don't worry, I'm good at escaping," Shanjin joked. Chu Hen smiled. He exchanged glances with Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, Haozi, and the others and nodded. Following that, his figure moved and he and Danjun each chose a direction and soared into the sky. As for the others, they stayed where they were and waited. "This place is really surprisingly quiet." Mu Feng glanced at a broken mountain range as he spoke with a profound tone. "I believe that it won't be long before the ancient desolate heaven domain turns into a battlefield." Some people said that the ancient desolation heaven realm was a blessed land created by the ancestors and gifted to the later generations. Some people said that the ancient desolation heaven realm was the remains of a chaotic battle thousands of years ago. Chapter 755. The magnificent mountains, rivers, and forests were like ancient mountains that had existed for thousands of years. According to Qi Hanyu's order, Nangong Bai, Lung Lingyan, Shanjun, and Chu Hen, the four strongest disciples of Mount Kunlu, were the first to explore the way. At this moment, Chu Hen had arrived at an area about 200 miles away. In front of him, there were many steep cliffs that pierced through the clouds. A faint mist floated between the heavens and the earth. The surrounding environment was beautiful and the spiritual energy was abundant. One had to admit that compared to the outside world, the ancient desolate heaven domain was like a paradise for cultivation. The abundance of spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the victorious East Province. Even if one stayed here and did nothing, just breathing and absorbing spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth to cultivate, One's cultivation speed would be several times faster than the outside world. It was no wonder that everyone fought so hard to enter the ancient, desolate heaven domain. Of course, Chu-Hen also understood that this was only the tip of the iceberg of the ancient, desolate heaven domain's charm. It even contained the power to make the Xian body reach the saint body level. Swoosh! Suddenly, Chu-Hen's eyes narrowed as he caught a hint of an obscure aura. There's someone. Chu-Hen couldn't help but slow down his footsteps. Then, he moved his body and landed on the side of a mountain peak. Looking ahead, what appeared in front of him was a vast and deep canyon. In the middle of the pool, there was a mound of soil. On the mound of soil, there was a lot of vegetation, and there were a few colorful flowers and plants. The clear water was blue, and the flowers and plants were beautiful. The mountains on both sides of the deep pool were so steep that it looked as if they were carved by a god with a giant axe. At first glance, this place was beautiful and harmonious. However, when Chu-Hen saw the beautiful scene in front of him, he frowned slightly. His intuition told him that this was not a good place. It was very simple. In this clear pond water, there wasn't even a single underwater creature to be seen. Not only that, there wasn't even a trace of an ordinary wild beast within a radius of nearly 50 kilometers, let alone some large demonic beasts. Then a few swift and fierce figures flew out from the side of another mountain peak. There were a total of 4 people. From their clothes, it could be seen that they were not disciples of the sect. Most of them were Horizon Ronin or bounty hunters. The human aura that Chu-Hen had sensed earlier came from them. The cultivation of these people is not weak. They have all reached the level of the profound world realm. Chu-Hen thought to himself. He immediately restrained his aura and hid in the dark to observe. The 4 of them did not stop at all and flew straight towards the pool in front of them. I didn't expect to find so many resurrection grass right after entering this place. My luck is really not bad. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with triangular eyes. His cold smile revealed a hint of complacency. A stalk of resurrection grass is worth 100 million high-grade origin crystal stones in the market. There are at least a few thousand stalks of resurrection grass here. With these, we won't have to worry for the rest of our lives. The other man, who was short but exuded a cold aura, smiled knowingly. Resurrection grass? Chu-Hen raised his eyebrows and looked over. Among the strange flowers and plants growing on the slope in the pool, there was a dark red flower that was the most eye-catching. The leaves of this flower were very strange. They were like the palm of a human. When the 5 fingers were spread out, it was like a human hand waving. It was wonderful and a little strange. Chu-Hen had some understanding of this so-called resurrection grass. It was a kind of treasure that had a very healing effect. Due to its high price, one stalk was worth close to 100 million. Only those from the big sects and families could afford it. At this time, the 4 of them had already reached the area above the deep pool of the canyon. The man with triangular eyes who spoke first shouted coldly, "This area is so quiet, there's most likely some evil beast hiding here. Second brother and I will go and pick the resurrection grass. Third brother, fourth brother, you 2 act according to the situation and cover us at any time." Understood. The 2 men behind him replied in unison. Those who could obtain the heaven and earth mystic yellow token and enter the ancient desolate heaven domain with their own abilities were not ordinary people. The 4 of them were very cautious. The triangular-eyed man and the short man looked at each other. Then, their figures flashed towards the small hill in the middle of the pool. The other 2 men also took out their weapons and iron chains, ready to cover the 2 of them at any time. Move out. Looking at the resurrection grass on the ground, the 4 of them looked like they were looking at a pile of gold. It was worth hundreds of billions of high-grade crystal stones. To anyone, it was a huge fortune. However, just as the 2 of them were about to pick the first stalk of resurrection grass, the calm surface of the water suddenly rippled. Then, with a deafening sound, the water rose to a height of 100 meters. A terrifyingly powerful aura surged out like a flood and immediately enveloped the area. Oh no! The faces of the 4 people changed dramatically. Before the others could react, more than a dozen incomparably huge tentacles directly flew out like flood dragons from the sea and instantly entangled the triangular-eyed man and the gloomy man within. What? The four of them were shocked again. The huge tentacles were like the hands of the sea god from the deep sea. Each tentacle was more than 100 meters long, and the dark red tentacles were covered with large suction cups. The two of them were immediately unable to move, as if they were entangled by giant pythons. Third brother, fourth brother, hurry up and cut these things, the two of them shouted in panic. In the next second, the two of them who were in charge of covering and rescuing had already raised the weapons in their hands, and the true origin aura in their bodies burst out without reservation. Evil creature, don't be arrogant. The burly third brother held a 2-meter-long golden blade in his hand. Endless true origin gathered on the blade, and it emitted a dazzling light. He raised the blade with both hands, and with a force that could split a mountain, he slashed at the tentacle that was wrapped around the man with triangular eyes. An all-out attack from an expert in the profound world realm was enough to split a mountain. This slash was full of energy. Boom! The extremely lethal slash was ruthlessly slashed down, and the raging power was vented on the tentacle. A thunderous sound exploded in the sky, and a chaotic wave of air shattered like a rain of light. Something that shocked everyone happened. The opponent's slash seemed to have hit a copper pillar, and it could not even break the skin and flesh of the tentacle. What? The third brother's eyes were wide open, and his face was pale. How was this possible? Whoosh! Without waiting for him to make any reaction, the other tentacle directly swung over, and with a rapid wind-breaking momentum, it dragged a series of afterimages in the air. Bang! With an explosive sound, the other party was smashed by the tentacle and directly burst into a cloud of blood mist. Third brother. The remaining people were shocked and angry, but more than that, they were filled with endless fear. I'm sorry, big brother, second brother. The fourth brother was so scared that he did not dare to stay here any longer. He turned around and fled, completely occupied by fear. However, just as he turned around, in the next second, a flying tentacle instantly wrapped around him. The other party was like a rabbit being attacked by a giant python, unable to move, and was firmly suppressed. Help no! Crash! Amidst the blood-curdling screams, filled with fear, the three men were dragged into the deep pool by the terrifying tentacles. Water splashed everywhere, and the scarlet blood was gradually diluted by the blue ripples. In the blink of an eye, the pool became quiet again. What a terrifying water monster! Chu Hen, who was hiding in the dark, witnessed the scene that happened in front of him, and his back faintly felt a little cold. In just a blink of an eye, 4 experts in the profound world realm died here. They did not even get to see the full appearance of the underwater demon beast, but with that huge tentacle, he could imagine that the other party was definitely a terrifying behemoth. He could not afford to provoke it. Without too much hesitation, Chu Hen shook his head, then his figure moved, and he turned around to return in the direction from which he came, ready to report back. A moment later, Chu Hen returned to the temporary residence of the people in Mount Kunliu. Almost at the same time, Nangong Ju, Lung Lingyan, and Shan Zhen also arrived. You're all back. Are you all right? Did you encounter any danger? Hua Xue, Haozi, and Mu Feng asked. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. After that, the 4 of them looked at Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang, the 2 hall masters, and replied in turn. 100 miles to the north is a desolate desert. I walked 100 miles in the desert, but I did not see the end. There are many underground demon beasts in the desert. Shan Zhen was the first to speak. Qi Hanyu nodded slightly, then looked at Lung Lingyan. The latter raised her beautiful eyes, and her red lips opened slightly, saying, There are many rocky valleys in the east, and many cave demon beasts live there. Simple and clear. Then Chu Hen paused for a moment, then said, There's a large area of jungle and mountains to the south, and there's a deep pool 200 miles away. There are demon beasts hiding in the pool, and they are very strong. 4 profound world realm experts were killed in an instant. Oh? As soon as he said that, everyone was slightly shocked. What kind of demon beast? Chi Hanyu asked. Chu Hin shook his head. I did not see its full appearance. I only saw a lot of huge tentacles. Tentacles? Chi Hanyu and Wen Liang looked at each other. The latter did not think much of it. It was just a demon beast. There was nothing to be surprised about. Before Chu Hin could finish his sentence, Wen Liang turned to look at Nangongqian. The latter glanced at Chu Hin from the corner of his eyes, then raised his head and answered, I found an ancient city 300 miles to the west. Ancient city? Everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 756. On the ancient road of the desolate city, the roots of the banyan tree run deep. A vast and flat ancient city appeared before the eyes of the group from Mount Kunliu. As if it had been weathered by the wind and rain for countless years, the ancient city exuded an unusually desolate aura. Many places have been eroded by the passage of time. The towering city walls stood before them, and it was difficult to make out the words on the walls. An ancient and desolate aura surged from the wide city gates, giving off a feeling that no one had been here for a long time. Previously, after Chu Hin, Nangong Ju, and the other two had investigated the surroundings, the two hall masters and a few elders had discussed and decided to head in the direction of the ancient city that Nangong Ju had discovered. Hall Master, should we send a few disciples in to investigate first? A middle-aged elder asked in a deep voice. There's no need. Wen Liang raised his hand slightly. Just go in directly. As one of the hall masters of Mount Kunliu, Wen Liang had absolute confidence and strength. Even if there were any dangers in the ancient city, he would be able to bear it. However, the flying immortal hall master, Chi Hanyu, said indifferently, it's better to send a few disciples in to investigate first. We've already wasted a lot of time. Even though this is the ancient desolate heaven domain, we don't have to be so restrained. With the two of us here, we can head in without worry. Wen Liang's tone was rather unyielding. This was also related to the martial art that he cultivated, the great demon slaughter technique. Every corner of his body exuded a powerful and domineering aura. Chi Hanyu could not be bothered to argue with him, so she did not insist any further. Soon after, under the lead of the two hall masters, the group from Mount Kunliu directly stepped through the gates of the ancient city and majestically made their way into the city. Even though the city was ancient, the buildings were still relatively well-maintained. Many tall buildings stood on both sides of the wide streets, and the weeds that covered the ground seemed to be telling of the desolation of this place. Under the desolation of the jade palaces, the past glory and prosperity were depicted. The ancient city was still abnormally quiet. There was not even the slightest rustling of grass in the wind. Everyone could only hear the sound of the group's footsteps. Under such a cautious atmosphere, everyone could not help but feel a little stifled. It's really strange. Rat frowned slightly, and his pair of small eyes were filled with confusion. What? Chu Hin asked in a low voice. In such an empty and desolate place, I can't even see a mouse. The people around him were slightly stunned. Mu Feng glanced sideways and said casually, They're all starving to death. What a joke. Housie rolled his eyes at him with slight dissatisfaction. In his opinion, all rodents had extremely tenacious vitality. Some poisonous insects, snakes, ants, and the like could all become food for rodents. In a wasteland like this, there could be no humans, but there would definitely be rodents. Maybe there are no rats in the ancient desolate heaven region. Hua Shui said. The few of them were startled once again. Chu Hen replied in a somewhat funny manner. That makes sense. Senior Brother Mouse, you should let Xiao Jin patrol around. Okay. Housie nodded and raised his right hand. Then, a little fellow the size of a child's fist scurried out of his sleeve and lay on his palm. What a cute golden rodent. Hua Shui's eyes lit up, and she subconsciously reached out to touch its furry little head. Is this a pet of yours? Lend it to me to play with for 2 days. Housie smiled and said to the golden rodent, Xiao Jin, go and see if there are any of your kind nearby. The mouse let out a soft GG, sound like a mosquito. Then, it leaped and turned into a ray of light, quickly disappearing at a corner of the street. The group continued forward. Not long after, the group from Mount Kunliu arrived at the center of the wasteland. In front of them was an ancient central plaza. There were artificial mountains, platforms, gardens, pavilions, and other buildings on the plaza. What was different from the outside world was that these buildings were particularly imposing. Coupled with the magnificent palaces nearby, it made this place stand out even more. "What's that?" Suddenly, a young disciple subconsciously blurted out. Everyone was slightly shocked and looked in the direction he was pointing. They saw a strange ball on top of an artificial mountain. Upon closer inspection, the ball was not particularly regular. It looked like a flower bud that had yet to bloom. A faint white halo flowed around it like a thin layer of gauze. Looking at the flower bud ball that was about half a meter in diameter, everyone's faces revealed a hint of confusion. Clearly, none of them knew what it was. "What's that thing?" There seems to be a rather strong energy fluctuation. The ancient desolate heaven region is indeed a blessed land. There are so many rare treasures growing here. Could it be the heavenly spirit flower? An uncertain voice came from the crowd. "Oh, heavenly spirit flower?" Hearing these three words, the hearts of the people from Mount Kunliu lit up. The heavenly spirit flower was an extremely rare heaven and earth spirit flower. It was nurtured by the essence of the earth and gradually grew. When it bloomed, it could reach a height of hundreds of meters. It had a very powerful effect of gathering spiritual energy. If it was transplanted to Mount Kunliu, the density of the heaven and earth spirit chi in the entire sect would increase greatly. It will be many times stronger than before. Looking at its appearance, it does look a little like the heavenly spirit flower. We're rich. There are no more than 5 sects in the victorious East State that possess the heavenly spirit flower. We really have to thank Senior Nangong for discovering this ancient city. Senior Nangong has done a great job. The crowd discussed softly and turned their gazes towards the 2 palace masters. Nangong Ho's face also faintly revealed a slightly proud smile. When Liang raised his hand slightly, and an elder behind him understood. Then, he ordered a young disciple to go forward and inspect it. The disciple's body moved, and he leaped like a cheetah, landing steadily on the artificial mountain that was tens of meters tall. He carefully approached the ball and observed it at a close distance. Then, he slowly extended his palm that was wrapped in true origin energy and gently placed it on the flower bud. Buzz, a faint ripple appeared in the air, and a few wisps of pure energy flowed into the disciple's body. The young disciple's eyes brightened. What pure spiritual energy! Palace Master, the energy is very pure. It's the heavenly spirit flower without a doubt. When this was said, the crowd was overjoyed. The young disciple also very gently and carefully took out the heavenly spirit flower along with the rock underneath it. He held the heavenly spirit flower in his palm, as if he had obtained a precious treasure, and flew to the ground. Squeak, squeak. At this moment, the gold-eating rat that Housie had sent out, Little Gold, had also returned. It lightly leaped on a Housie's palm and let out a low and urgent squeak. When he heard Little Gold's explanation, Housie's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly glared at the young disciple who was walking over with the heavenly spirit flower and shouted loudly, "Throw that thing away! Throw it away!" What? The thunderous sound exploded in everyone's ears like a clap of thunder. Even the expressions of the 2 palace masters changed abruptly. In the next second, the heavenly spirit flower suddenly surged with a violent energy fluctuation that was similar to the magma in the belly of a volcano. The violent fluctuation was comparable to the undercurrents in the deep sea. The powerful aura caused the exquisite flower bud to rapidly expand, and in an instant, it became a few meters wide. The young disciple turned pale with fright and hurriedly threw the heavenly spirit flower in his hand away. But at the same time, the flower bud directly blossomed with countless dazzling scarlet rays of light. Bang! With a deafening explosion, the violently twisting and surging flower bud suddenly burst open, and thousands of light beams and flowing shadows wantonly flew about. Chapter 757. Bang! The extremely violent shockwave caused the entire central square of the desolate city to tremble. The powerful energy riot was like a volcano that had erupted in an instant. Along with the endless scarlet radiance, countless streaks of light flew out from the exploding flower bud. The young Mount Cunliffe disciple was caught off guard. Without any preparation, he was directly crushed by the dense streaks of light. In just a blink of an eye, a bloody incident occurred in Mount Cunliffe. "Retreat!" The master of the Flying Celestial Palace, Chi Hanyu, shouted coldly. The Mount Cunliffe disciples retreated one after another and took a defensive stance. Buzz, buzz, rumble. The noise was earth-shattering, and it directly enveloped everyone on Mount Cunliffe. When everyone focused their attention and saw what was happening, they could not help but clench their fists tightly. Their faces were instantly filled with a thick gloominess and chilling anger. The streaks of light that killed the young disciple were actually reddish-brown, poisonous insects. These poisonous insects were not very big and looked a little like ladybugs. However, the people of Mount Cunliffe knew very well that these were definitely not ordinary ladybugs. They were the blood-hunting poison ladybugs with extremely strong offensive power. There is only one place in the Eastern Victory State that had this kind of poisonous insect. This place was the sworn enemy of Mount Cunliffe, the blood-refining sect. Buzz, buzz. The blood-hunting poison ladybugs that filled the sky were like a sandstorm that was swept up by a gale. They surrounded the people of Mount Cunliffe in the central square. A thick aura of danger rushed in from all directions like a torrent. However, an even more terrifying thing happened again. Along with a rustling sound, the ground around the square rapidly bulged up one by one. Following that, densely packed poisonous insects once again drilled out from the ground. Buzz, buzz. Not only that, but the sky outside the city was also filled with a majestic swarm of poisonous bees. The black and dense army of poisonous insects was like a raging tsunami that soared into the sky. With the momentum of returning, they pounced on the people of Mount Cunliffe from all directions. Boom! At the same time, a gale blew between heaven and earth. A powerful aura that was as strong as a mountain once again pressed down in this direction. Ha ha ha. Wen Liang, Chi Hanyu, long time no see. How have you been? The surging true inner force converged into a violent gale that surged forward. Then, a black-clothed figure with an astonishing aura appeared in the void. Wen Liang and Chi Hanyu's pupils faintly shrank when they saw the person who had arrived. The former's eyes turned cold as he clenched his hand. A domineering red aura rose from his body. Wen Liang's throat bobbed as he coldly spat out two words. Holai. Holai was one of the most powerful people in the blood-refining hall. When they saw who it was, the faces of the people from Mount Cunliffe turned cold. Sure enough, they were from the blood-refining hall. Enemies were truly bound to meet on a narrow road. He had only arrived in the ancient, desolate heaven domain for less than a day, and he had already met an enemy. This was truly unexpected. Hey, the middle-aged man named Ho Lai smiled proudly. I am very honored to inform everyone that today is the first day that Mount Cunliffe has arrived, and the entire army is going to be annihilated here. Humph! When Liang sneered and shouted with slight disdain, You and me. As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderstorm suddenly appeared on the other side of the sky, exploding in everyone's ears. The airwaves were monstrous, and the space was trembling. Another figure whose aura was not weaker than Ho Lai's flew over again. This person had a head of dark blue hair, and his skin was pale without any color of blood. His lips were also dark blue, as if they were smeared with poison, giving off an extremely dangerous feeling. Liao Qi Xiao, Wen Liang shouted in a deep voice, and his face couldn't help but turn gloomy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following that, several fierce and cold figures flashed from all directions. Looking at the experts of the blood-refining hall who appeared around them, the people from Mount Cunliffe felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They never thought that they would fall into the trap of the blood-refining hall on the first day they arrived in the ancient, desolate heaven domain. With the two experts, Ho Lai and Liao Qixio, even when Liang and Qi Hanyu might not be able to gain too much of an advantage, the most troublesome thing was the countless venomous insects, snakes, and ants in front of them. Once a war broke out, the people from Mount Kunliu would definitely suffer a great loss. Are you going to surrender without a fight? Or are you going to fight like a cornered beast? Liao Qixio's dark blue lips curled up, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Wen Liang's face revealed a disgusted expression. Looking at your face makes me sick. Surrender without a fight? You're just a bunch of useless things who only know how to use unorthodox methods. Do you think that there's no one in Mount Kunliu? Oomph. You're just using your tongue. Ho Lai's eyes darkened, and then a powerful aura was released from his body. It's useless to say more. Today, I'll let the two of you witness with your own eyes how the people from Mount Kunliu die here. Attack. Kill. Without any superfluous words, Ho Lai ordered. The sky was filled with bloodthirsty, poisonous wasps and other venomous insects, snakes, and ants, and they directly launched a fierce attack on the people from Mount Kunliu. Tens of thousands of venomous insects started to attack and kill like a magnificent army, showing the power to take lives. After all, the people selected by Mount Kunliu this time were all elite disciples, and they were all experts in the outside world. They were panicked but not in a mess. Immediately, they broke out a powerful true inner force and displayed all kinds of gorgeous skills. These ants want to swallow our Mount Kunliu? Dream on. Kill these stinky insects. Boom, bang. Under the impact and devastation of the fierce power, the venomous insects, snakes, and ants were killed and crushed into pieces. Although the venomous insects raised by the blood refining hall had a very powerful attack power, they were not invincible in front of the real elite masters. However, the original intention of the blood refining hall was not to swallow the people from Mount Kunliu with these venomous insects. In the next second, when the bloodthirsty poisonous wasps launched the first attack, the masters and disciples of the blood refining hall in the rear area also rose together. They flew out like sharp arrows, rolling up an amazing momentum into the killing. Boom! In an instant, the battle between the blood refining hall and Mount Kunliu broke out in an instant. Nangong Ku, Lung Lingyan, Shanzhen, Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, Chu Hen, and the others all joined the battle. In an instant, the sky was filled with the glint of blades and shadows of swords. All kinds of powerful martial arts and secret techniques set off dazzling lights and spiritual runes of various colors. Ripples of mighty shock waves swept in all directions, causing buildings to collapse one after another. Damn it! I thought I could get some benefits by following a big sect, but I didn't expect to become a fighter as soon as I arrived. Mu Feng cursed in a low voice. Then he moved his palm, and the pagoda devil sword appeared in his hand. The awe-inspiring blue sword energy formed a tornado-like whirlpool around him, and all the bloodthirsty poisonous wasps that came within 100 meters of him were directly crushed into pieces. Qi Zhang, the sect leader of the Thousand Crane sect, shook his head helplessly. However, before he came, he was fully mentally prepared because anything could happen here. Even if he died here, he could only accept his fate. After all, it was his own choice. Howsy, hurry up and call out your handsome rat army, Hua Shui shouted while dodging the flying poisonous insects. Howsy was speechless. This is the ancient desolation heaven domain. Stop dreaming. Be careful. Don't joke around. Chu Hen reminded in a deep voice and summoned the sharp sickle of death. The cold and sharp edge rapidly harvested the insects and the enemy's lives. Hua Shui felt a little wronged. She wasn't joking. She thought that the Weasel army would follow Howsy wherever he went. In the last battle with the Blood Refining Hall, Howsy's Weasel army could be said to be invincible. Chu Hen didn't have time to pay attention to Hua Shui. While he was fighting with the enemies, he looked at Qi Hanyu, Wen Liang, Ho Lai, and Liao Qixio who were confronting each other. This time, the Blood Refining Hall lured the team from Mount Kunliu into a trap. They indeed had the momentum to capture everyone in one fell swoop. Chapter 758. Boom, bang, buzz, buzz. The collision of martial arts and skills intertwined with the flying sounds of countless blood-hunting poisonous insects, setting off a monstrous turbulence. On the first day of arriving at the ancient desolate heaven domain, the blood-refining sect and Mount Kun Lu unexpectedly met. A fierce battle instantly broke out. Ho Lai and Liao Qixio, the two powerhouses of the blood-refining sect, looked down at Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang with a condescending attitude. When the four people's gazes met, a chilling intent burst out. Liao Qixio looked at Qi Hanyu and smiled coldly. Then, he raised his palm and made a throat-slitting gesture. His dark blue lips curled up, revealing a ferocious intent. Swoosh! However, in the next second, the space trembled and Qi Hanyu immediately disappeared. At the same time, a dazzling aurora tore through the air and directly slashed at Liao Qixio like a sharp sword piercing through the sky. The latter's pupils shrank. With a bang sound, the streak of light directly struck Liao Qixio's body. Chaotic, true Yuan light patterns exploded in the air as a powerful shockwave swept out. Following Liao Qixio was rapidly sent flying backwards. Under the dazzling white light, the flying celestial palace master, Qi Hanyu, was as light as a feather. Her whole body emitted a transcendent demeanor. You've improved a lot since a few years ago. Liao Qixio sneered as he operated the true origin in his body to suppress the surging blood and qi. He remembered that when they fought last time, Qi Hanyu's performance was far less powerful than today. Especially the temperament that she revealed now. It was more stable than before, making it difficult for others to judge her emotional fluctuations. Under such circumstances, it was not something that an ordinary person could still maintain a calm state of mind. Qi Hanyu raised her cold eyes, and the fingers on her slender right hand moved. Shing! A soft sound rang out, and a white sword that was as beautiful as jade appeared in her hand. She flew up, and a holy and pure sword light bloomed. Her powerful aura was like a torrent of water, and it crushed towards the opponent. Liao Qixio's face darkened. He stretched out both his palms, and a gray light surged in his palms. Accompanied by a noisy buzzing sound, densely packed tiny poisonous insects flew out from his palms and rushed towards Qi Hanyu. Qi Hanyu gently raised her wrist and raised her hand. A swift and violent sword light shot out, smashing the swarm of insects in front of her. The smashed swarm of insects turned into countless strands of gray smoke that floated between heaven and earth and shrouded Qi Hanyu's surroundings. Moreover, the gray mist attached itself to Qi Hanyu's true essence defensive shield, corroding her true essence at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qi Hanyu's brows furrowed and the corners of her eyes narrowed. She muttered in a low voice, "Looks like I have to end this quickly." Rumble. At the same time, Wen Liang and Ho Lai exploded with a majestic aura. The former soared into the sky, while the latter descended diagonally. The true origin outside their bodies surged, and they were like two meteorites that had unexpectedly met and collided head-on. Bang! Along with a deafening bang, the sky above the entire desolated city was in turmoil. The mighty true origin ripple formed a surging halo. The buildings below were directly shaken to the point of collapsing, and they were reduced to ruins. Wen Liang, you little brat, it's been so many years since we last fought. Your grand devil slayer art has regressed. As the chaotic cyclones converged, the wind and clouds surged, and the color of the sky changed. Faced with Wen Liang, the leader of Devil Slayer Palace, who was famous for his domineering and ferocity, Ho Lai's aura was not suppressed in the slightest. Wen Liang glared at Ho Lai. The red light soared and danced around his body as if it was surrounded by the divine flame of the 9 suns. Every move he made revealed a violent and destructive aura. Then go ahead and try. Swoosh! As soon as Wen Liang finished speaking, thunderous sounds resounded around him. He punched out, and a red fist print that shocked the heavens smashed towards Ho Lai like a mountain. The latter did not want to be outdone. He smiled coldly, and a dense black light surged out of his body. Strands of black light patterns interweaved and covered the surface of Ho Lai's skin, and it immediately formed a thick layer of black armor. This layer of armor seemed to be cast from molten iron, and it looked like an indestructible body of steel. Bang! A loud bang sounded. Ho Lai, who had transformed into a body of steel, used the strength of his body to shatter the ferocious, huge fist print into light patterned fragments that filled the sky. Wan Liang's figure sped up, and his domineering aura could topple the mountains and overturn the seas as he pressed forward. I'm going to peel off this layer of turtle shell of yours today. Oof. Wan Liang, you little brat, you're still so arrogant even when you're at death's door. Bang. Boom. Two different colors of power, one red and one black, blasted the sky. Compared with the battle between Qi Hanyu and Liao Qixio, Wan Liang and Ho Lai were like two furious fierce beasts. Once they confronted each other, sparks flew everywhere, airwaves flew everywhere, and even the space was shaken and distorted by the fierce power. The four superiors of Mount Kunliu and the blood refining hall with the highest power started a fierce fight, which made the sky gloomy and gloomy. The battle situation of the four people made it difficult for others to get close to them. Although Qi Hanyu and Wan Liang did not show too much emotional fluctuations, everyone knew that they had to seize the initiative and defeat their opponents in the shortest time to establish the victory. Otherwise, the team of Mount Kunliu would be in big trouble. Kill. The fierce scuffle continued to extend. Even though the team of Mount Kunliu fought back strongly, with the help of the countless poisonous insects, the team of the blood refining hall had already gained the upper hand. Even the bite of one or two blood-hunting poisonous ladles was enough to make people confused and suffer physical setbacks. Once the rhythm was messed up, it would be a devastating blow. Get lost. Nan Gonghao set off a fierce momentum. He raised his palm high and chopped down like a palm knife. A red palm blade light with peerless momentum chopped out. Rumble! Along with a gully with a width of more than 10 meters on the ground, the disciples of the blood refining hall and poisonous insects in a straight line in front of him were all smashed into clouds of blood mist. Just when Nan Gonghao showed his great power, a flying kick as fast as lightning suddenly attacked from the left side. Buzz! Accompanied by a strong wind that swept toward the opponent's head, Nan Gonghao's eyes turned cold, and he directly blocked it with his arm. Pung! An explosive sound rang out, and a violent explosive force exploded between the two. Nan Gonghao, who also practiced the Grand Demon Slayer skill, was pushed back by the impact. His feet left deep marks on the ground, and he could only stop after retreating for 7 or 8 meters. Gaolang! Nan Gonghao's face was gloomy, and he stared coldly at the figure who attacked him just now. Gaolang, a top genius of the blood refining hall, was as famous as Nan Gonghao. Before they came to the ancient Baron's heaven realm, there were many grudges between them. Gaolang raised his eyebrows and smiled frivolously. You don't mind if I take your life today, do you? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. After saying that, Nan Gonghao dashed toward Gaolang like a sharp arrow. His fist that was covered with a red glow smashed toward Gaolang's head with great power. On the other side, after Lung Lingyan killed more than 10 experts of the blood refining hall, a ghost-like remnant shadow was rapidly approaching her from behind. Senior Sister Lung, behind you. A disciple of Mount Kunliu reminded her loudly. Lung Lingyan immediately turned around and stretched out her palm toward the remnant shadow. Her palm did not reveal the slightest fluctuation of power. It looked weak and powerless, just enough to kill an ant. But even so, the afterimage suddenly unleashed a powerful aura of true origin, not daring to be careless when facing Lung Lingyan's attack. Bang! In an instant, Lung Lingyan's jade-like palm collided head-on with one of the pale palms. A heavy explosion set off an astonishing and violent impact. Gorgeous light patterns spread out, and a thick layer of rubble was flattened on the ground. Then, both of them retreated dozens of meters away. It's you. Chapter 759. It's you. Lung Lingyan's beautiful eyes turned cold as she looked at the person who attacked her from behind. Lung Lingyan, you didn't expect this to happen to you, did you? An indifferent and flirtatious voice came from a young woman who was about the same age as Lung Lingyan. This woman was quite pretty and had thick makeup on her face. She looked at Lung Lingyan with a frivolous and disdainful gaze. Humph! Lung Lingyan snorted. You're just a loser. How dare you show off in front of me? Loser? Are you joking? When have I, Lu Fu, ever been defeated by you? Now, the corners of Lung Lingyan's mouth curled up slightly. Then, her figure moved and directly turned into several afterimages as she swept toward her opponent. The young woman called Lu Fu's eyes turned cold. She did not show any weakness and exploded with a powerful aura to meet the attack. You've always been so arrogant. Of course I'm arrogant because I'm strong. You stupid woman. Lung Lingyan's movement speed was extremely fast and was like a light breeze. She did not release any aura, making it difficult for others to judge the strength of her attack. However, Lu Fu was not an ordinary person. Like Gao Lang, who was fighting with Nangong Bai, she was also a top genius in the blood refining hall. Her attack and defense were full of powerful sharpness. Boom! The fierce battle between the two great sects destroyed the desolate city with an earth-shattering momentum. Various gorgeous and powerful martial arts collided wantonly, causing the entire space to distort and shake. Blood rained down as severed limbs flew in all directions. With the help of these tens of thousands of poisonous insects, snakes, and ants, the blood refining hall gained the upper hand with an absolute advantage. One by one, the disciples of Mount Kunliu were bitten and destroyed by the blood-hunting poisonous scoop and the bloodthirsty poisonous bees. They died miserably, this group of damned bastards. After killing an enemy with a palm strike, Dan Zhun angrily rebuked. Not far away, Fu Qin, Hua Shui, Ji Shu, Qi Teng, and the others were also extremely anxious. If this continued, the Mount Kunliu team would really be annihilated today. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Then he said to Mu Feng, Hao Zi, and the others in a stern voice, "Kill the poisonous insects first." Boom! Before he finished speaking, a powerful purple radiance erupted from Chu Hen's body. The purple radiance surged within his eyes, and the 4 black dots within his pupils rapidly rotated. Along with an extremely icy cold aura, the space in the area above him twisted, and a violent tsunami-like purple flame quickly spread outwards. The demonic flame engulfed the blood-hunting poison ladle and the bloodthirsty giant wasps with the momentum of a prairie fire. The sky changed color, and with crackling sounds, a large number of poisonous insects were reduced to ashes. What? When the masters of the blood refining hall saw this scene, they were all secretly shocked. The poisonous insects they raised were not afraid of ordinary flames at all. As for the strange purple flames in front of him, its lethality was really strong. Demonic whirlwind slash. Then, Mu Feng also set off a majestic momentum. He waved the pagoda demonic sword in his hand, and countless fierce blue sword gang hovered around him and rotated rapidly. In an instant, a huge tornado vortex with a height of more than 100 feet hit the poisonous insects, snakes, and ants flying between heaven and earth with the momentum of stirring the sky. Rumble. It was as if a storm had struck, and a hurricane enveloped the area. Countless poisonous insects were forcefully crushed to pieces. Hao Zi, Qi Zhang, Dan Zhun, and the others also made the poisonous insect the primary target. As long as they blocked the attack of these poisonous insects, the advantage of the blood refining hall would quickly disappear. At that time, the people of Mount Kunliu could stabilize their position and survive. However, the blood refining hall would never allow this to happen. Kill them. A master of the blood refining hall pointed at Chu Hen, who showed great power with the demonic flame, and shouted, "Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh." Before he finished his words, more than a dozen aggressive figures, like wolves pouncing on their prey, exuded a cold, murderous aura. Go to hell. Facing the people who surrounded him from all sides, Chu Hen did not have the slightest fear on his face. He leaped and instantly arrived in the void. Then his body rotated rapidly, and along with the violently shaking space, a surge of shocking sword momentum burst out of his body. One sword celestial, myriad sword tribulation. Buzz! In the next instant, countless peerlessly powerful black sword rain blossomed from Chu Hen's body. The densely packed sword-light mirage tore through the air and split the air. It was as if it was 1,000 years of time, and it flew in all directions. The people who besieged Chu Hen were all shocked. Before they could recover, the sword light penetrated their bodies one after another. Hiss! Blood splattered, and more than a dozen people were pierced into sieves by the sword light in a burst of screams. The appearance of this scene directly attracted the attention of Liao Qixio and Ho Lai, the two leaders of the blood refining hall. The latter frowned and spat out a few words coldly. One sword celestial technique. Exactly. Wen Liang, the master of the demon-slaying hall, crossed his arms, and the red light outside his body surged like a flame. The mountain-like power crushed all the way, and then a red light beam fell from the sky, blasting at Ho Lai like a divine punishment. I'll let you see the real power of the grand demon-slaying technique. The terrifying momentum directly shrouded Ho Lai. Ho Lai's face changed slightly, and he quickly flashed sideways to escape 100 meters away. The next second, the red light beam hit the ground of the barren city below. Bang! The city collapsed and the ground cracked. The endless destructive impact was comparable to a meteorite whizzing down. The ground quickly cracked into a huge sinkhole, and the bricks cracked inch by inch. The dense gravel, big and small, was like a group of startled moths, blotting out the sky and the earth and splashing wantonly. The mighty and powerful shock wave instantly killed countless poisonous insects and many disciples of the blood refining hall. Bang! On the other side, Qi Hanyu and Liao Qixio also hit each other hard. The silver and gray light patterns spread out vertically, and the piercingly cold air waves were like ripples on the surface of water. Wherever they went, the space was distorted. Looks like your Mount Kunliu has a few good talents in recent years. Liao Qixio's face was a little surprised. Qi Hanyu held her long sword diagonally, and circles of true origin flowed around her body. With her, as the center, the heaven and earth faintly produced a shocking and powerful rhythm. You want to swallow our Mount Kunliu? Wishful thinking. That's not necessarily true. A strange smile appeared on Liao Qixio's face, and then he turned his gaze to Ho Lai, who was elsewhere. It's time to take out the big gift I prepared for them. That's exactly what I intend to do. Ho Lai's eyes were also filled with thick ridicule. Big gift? The people of Mount Kunliu were all shocked, and a huge wave of uneasiness surged in their hearts. Boom! Suddenly, Liao Qixio and Ho Lai's body released an unprecedented momentum. The two of them faced each other with one palm in the air, standing far away. Extremely restless energy flew out from their palms at the same time. Bang! The moment the true origin light beams shot out by the two of them met, it was like two lightning bolts had unexpectedly met, and thousands of sparks and arcs of light were produced. The sky was filled with dazzling arcs of light, and the space between the two immediately fell into an uneasy state of distortion. Dark clouds surged, and the world spun. Under the angry roar of the wind, the earth became dark and dull. The blooming arcs of light actually converged to form a magnificent and majestic glyph array. Light and shadow flowed within the glyph array like a divine disk. Rumble, wind and lightning crisscrossed, and the glyph array constantly erupted with dazzling light. Layer after layer of vast waves of air spread out, forming a huge pressure that shook the people below and caused them to continuously retreat, unable to stand steadily. Liao Qixio laughed proudly. Come out, a species born to kill. Bang! A huge golden light beam erupted from the glyph array, and the light beam struck the desolate city below. The ground cracked layer by layer. Dust flew everywhere, and rocks flew all over the place. A cold and dangerous aura surged out like a surging tide. Kiki. Chapter 760. TSK Tisk. The temperature in the entire desolate city dropped abruptly as a cold and dangerous aura surged out. Everyone present could feel the cold and dangerous aura from the bottom of their hearts. In the next instant, a gigantic, ferocious creature that seemed to have awakened after 1,000 years of slumber appeared before the eyes of the people from Mount Clea Mountain, who were trembling in fear. Swoosh! A vast, cold air wave swept out in all directions like ripples on the surface of water. The ground cracked, sand and stones flew, and the buildings were razed to the ground. This was an extremely ferocious and terrifying evil monster. It looked like a huge, venomous scorpion, but in the middle of its body, there was the torso and head of a huge ant standing upright. It looked like a combination of a scorpion and a gigantic ant. From afar, the giant ant looked as if it had grown out from the scorpion's back. Its incomparably sharp tentacles were covered with thorns, and its iron pants-like mouth was comparable to a guillotine. Its entire body was covered with a shiny black carapace, as if it was cast from copper, and was impervious to all weapons. Tisk tiske, tiske kiske. The scorpion and the giant ant let out a shrill cry of excitement as their scarlet eyes gleamed with a bloodthirsty light. Looking at this pair of conjoined monsters, everyone from Mount Kunliu felt a chill in their hearts. Other than the other party's terrifying appearance, the aura emitted by this monster caused one's heart to palpitate. This is the faces of Wen Liang, the palace master of Devil Slaughter Palace, and Qi Hanyu, the palace master of Soaring Celestial Palace, were filled with shock. The latter clenched her delicate fists and muttered with a solemn expression. They actually succeeded? Wen Liang's eyes were cold and his face was gloomy. According to the information that Mount Clea Mountain had collected, the blood refining sect had been researching a new secret tactic in recent years. This kind of secret technique was to combine the bloodlines of two powerful demonic beasts with extremely strong offensive abilities, allowing them to become a new generation of new species. The new species would possess the strength and characteristics of the two beasts and become a more dangerous product. After collecting this information, Mount Kunliu also sent more people to investigate the blood refining hall, but there was no progress. Later, it was thought that the blood refining hall gave up the development of this secret skill. After all, it was too difficult to complete this plan. But he never expected that the blood refining hall had never stopped developing this secret skill. They had been doing it secretly. What was even more surprising was that they actually succeeded. The expressions on your faces are exactly what I'm looking forward to. A proud smile appeared on both Liao Qixio and Ho Lai's faces. The former spread his arms and laughed excitedly. It's a species formed from the fusion of two beast emperor-level demon beasts, the Dark Scorpion Emperor and the Devouring Ant Emperor. We've named it the Evil Beast of Death. Its bloodline will be much stronger than before. Ha ha. Demonic Beast of Death. The expressions of the people from Mount Cohen Lu changed again and again. They were shocked again and again. Just how powerful would a new species born from the combination of the bloodlines of two top beast kings be? Could it be a terrifying species that was even more powerful than the beast emperors? Heavenly beasts? I've been waiting for a long time. The slaughter begins. Liao Qixio's demonic laughter reverberated through the air. In an instant, the evil beast of death seemed to have broken through its shackles. Its two huge and ferocious heads faced the sky and roared. Its entire body was emitting surging black gas. Its sharp tentacles and claws waved like an octopus as it charged towards the people from Mount Kunlu. Retreat! An elder from Mount Kunlu shouted. Don't fight it head on. Rumble. The aura of the evil beast of death was extremely strong. It was like a moving mountain. A few disciples from Mount Kunlu could not avoid it in time and were instantly swept by its huge pincers and claws. Bang! They were smashed into pieces and their heads were separated from their bodies. Oomph! What evil beast of death! I'd like to test its capabilities. The eyes of the demon slaying palace master Wen Liang surged with coldness. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved and swept up billowing flames as he charged towards the evil beast of death. Boom! However, in the next moment, a black light screen appeared out of thin air and flew up like a tsunami, directly blocking Wen Liang's path. "Hey, your opponent is me." A frivolous sneer could be heard as Ho Lai chased after Wen Liang and struck with his palm. Wong! A palm blade that was hundreds of meters wide slashed down with the might of a thunderbolt. Wen Liang turned around to face the attack. Both of his palms rotated and a scarlet energy ball flew out and bombarded the palm blade. Bang! It was earth-shattering and the sky shook. The powerful forces collided and exploded, creating a raging wave of true essence that covered the sky. Wild gales howled in all directions. Wen Liang's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but look at Qi Hanyu, who was on the other side. Qi Hanyu nodded. She understood what he meant. "Disciples of Mount Kunlu, listen to my order. Retreat, retreat." Qi Hanyu gave the order as fast as she could. The reason why Wen Liang wanted to test the strength of the evil beast of death was completely intentional. Ho Lai intercepted Wen Liang immediately. This was enough to prove that the combat strength of the evil beast of death had not reached the level of a mature heavenly beast. If it was an adult heavenly beast, the people of Mount Kunlu would definitely die today. But now, there was still a chance of survival if they retreated at full speed. Immediately, Wen Liang and Qi Hanyu unleashed their strongest power and launched a fierce attack on Liao Qixio and Ho Lai. On the other hand, Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, and the other top genius disciples were responsible for covering the retreat of the people of Mount Kunlu. Even so, it was difficult for them to resist the evil beast of death's pursuit and attack. The disdainful shriek seemed to be mocking the struggle of the people of Mount Kunlu. One after another, the young disciples were crushed by the claws of the evil beast of death. One after another, experts lost their lives under its giant mouth that looked like a man-eating flower. Wherever the evil beast of death went, there were wails. "This dog, let's fight it to the death." Seeing his companions die one after another in front of him, Shan Jun was filled with rage. Swoosh! He soared into the sky and turned into a ray of light. "Senior brother Shan Jun, don't be impulsive," Hua Shui exclaimed. However, Shan Jun was ready to fight with his life on the line. Surging true inner force spread out from his body, and gorgeous golden light patterns flowed around him. They immediately intertwined and transformed into a giant golden eagle with an unparalleled aura. The evil beast of death let out a disdainful laugh. The poisonous stinger on its tail soared into the sky like a chain. It swept up a strong, destructive aura and headed toward the giant golden eagle that Shan Jun had transformed into. Boom! When the two collided, it set off a heavy, thunderous sound between heaven and earth. In the next second, the giant eagle shadow outside Shan Jun's body was directly shattered by the impact. It instantly burst into thousands of true inner force fragments. What? Shan Jun's pupils shrank violently. He saw the sharp, poisonous stinger, like the stinger of a swordfish shuttling through the deep sea, quickly attacking Shan Jun's chest. Swoosh! At the critical moment, a bitingly cold and ferocious death scythe flew over like a boomerang. When the poisonous stinger was less than 2 meters away from Danjin's chest, it fiercely collided with the stinger's tail. Bang! The scattered energy waves exploded outwards, and the fatal tail stinger was knocked off course, sliding past Danjun's left shoulder. That was close. Fu Qin, Hua Shui, Haozi, and the others below could not help but let out sighs of relief. Swoosh! Shortly after, the scythe of the Grim Reaper drew a trajectory in the air before returning to a strong and slender palm. Looking at the person beside her, Shan Jun revealed a look of gratitude. Chapter 761. Get ready to cover me. After saving Danjun, Chu Hen shouted in a deep voice. Boom! In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted from Chu Hen's body, and the death scythe in his hand blossomed with a dazzling cold light. Without saying a word, he directly charged towards the death demonic beast. Looking at the weak human who had ruined its business, the death demonic beast's dozens of sharp tentacles danced continuously. The ant queen that grew on the back of the giant scorpion actually stood up, and then opened its huge mouth like a man-eating flower. Buzz! With a sound, a dark green beam of light shot out from the mouth of the ant queen, sweeping up an extremely restless and destructive killing intent towards Chu Hen. "Be careful!" Hua Shui, who was in the area below, exclaimed. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. His body moved, drawing a beautiful arc in the sky. While avoiding the impact of the beam of light, he once again increased his speed. The rapid sound of breaking wind was especially ear-piercing. Chi-chi, along with the high-pitched cries of tens of thousands of birds, countless densely packed bolts of black lightning were quickly released from Chu Hen's body and climbed onto the death god's scythe in his hand. The violent power of dark lightning was like a black lightning net, covering the sky and covering the earth as it shrouded the death demonic beast in front of him. Facing the terrifying monster that was as large as a small mountain, a cold glint flickered in Chu Hen's eyes. His hands tightly grasped the handle of the death god's scythe and chopped towards the ant queen's large head with a dragging stance. "Evil creature, you have too many heads. I'll take care of one for you." Rumble. Dark lightning interweaved, deafening, and the sky darkened. Waves of air surged into the sky. Chu Hen was like the god of lightning in the midst of storm. The death scythe, which was surrounded by the majestic power of dark lightning, suddenly expanded to a width of 300 meters. Clang! In the blink of an eye, the extremely powerful attack struck the head of the queen ant of death evil beast. The giant scythe, covered in thousands of lightning tribulations, had the power to split the heavens. Boom! A violent tremor rang out, and a mighty aftermath swept out in all directions. The impact, which was comparable to the undercurrents of the deep sea, instantly exploded between the demonic beast of death and Chu Hen. Space trembled. Chu Hen felt his arms go numb, and his palms felt like they were about to crack. In the next second, the death god's scythe in his hand broke into two with a bang. What? The expressions of Dan Zhun, Hua Shui, Haozi, Su Lang, and the rest of the people from Mount Kunliu changed greatly. Even Chu Hen's weapon had been broken. Just how terrifying was the defense of this demonic beast of death? Ja! The huge body of the demonic beast of death swayed back and forth as it took a few steps back. The surrounding buildings were crushed into pieces. There was a white mark that was 2 to 3 meters wide on the head of the demonic beast of death. Apart from that, there were no other injuries. Hey, idiots! You want to break through the defense of the demonic beast of death with such little ability? You really overestimate yourself. Gao Lang, the top genius of the blood refining hall, sneered disdainfully. Nan Gonghao, who was dealing with the demonic beast of death, frowned and his face turned gloomy. Just as the demonic beast of death steadied itself and was about to launch another round of attack, Chu Hen shouted, "Mu Feng, Sect Master Qizhong." "Got it," Mu Feng shouted. Qizhong also replied, "Got it." Sword Pagoda, Buddha's chop. Mu Feng let out an explosive shout. Immediately, several surging dark blue pillars of light flew out from his body. The dazzling pillars of light were like intertwining dragons that soared into the sky. Mu Feng raised the demon's sword in his hand high up, and a dazzling light pattern burst out. Rumble! A thunderous rumble swept out, and then an ancient pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall appeared in the sky above them. Moreover, a vast and surging desolate and ancient aura swept through the heavens and the earth. After that, the ancient pagoda descended from the sky and crushed down towards the demonic beast of death like a divine object. The demonic beast of death, was unable to dodge in time, and a powerful force that was comparable to the weight of Mount Tai collided with its body. In an instant, the heavens collapsed and space warped. Boundless blue light soared into the sky, and layer upon layer of waves of air crushed towards the surroundings. A thick layer of the soil on the ground was scraped off, and the monstrous aura of the demonic beast of death was suppressed once more. With it as the center, an enormous crater swiftly appeared on the ground. But even then, there weren't many injuries on the demonic beast of death. Heaven's Eye, the attack of the Thousand Crane sect master, Qi Zhang, followed closely behind. Divine radiance that was as dazzling as the sun appeared in the sky, and then golden rain and divine radiance intersected around Qi Zhang. Whem, whem. After that, the vertical eye at the center of Qi Zhang's forehead opened up, and then a beam of silver light shot out explosively from within it. As it moved, the beam of silver light rapidly dispersed and expanded into the shape of an enormous funnel. Swoosh! The funnel enveloped the demonic beast of death, and it instantly seemed as if it had fallen into a swamp. It felt like its entire body was carrying an extremely heavy burden, and its ferocious aura was suppressed once more. But in merely a second, the ferocious aura of the demonic beast of death rebounded. Qi Zhang's face turned pale, and he gritted his teeth as he shouted, "Chu Hen, I can't hold on for much longer. It's already enough." Chu Hen's high-spirited words were spat out from his mouth. Once those words were spoken, everyone present was completely shocked. His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when Chu Hen's entire body suddenly erupted with dazzling and resplendent starlight, and he seemed like a bright moon that hung high in the sky. Rumble. Swoosh. In the next instant, 7 silver light patterns flew out of his body like spiritual vines, and they extended and expanded endlessly. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he shouted in a stern voice, "Fecta chains, trap gods and demons." The 7 silver spiritual vines immediately transformed into 7 enormous thick chains, and under the silver light, the 7 enormous chains looked like wings with flickering light patterns. The silver chains rushed forward at high speed, like 7 silver serpents. Chu Hen stood within the chains, and his aura was monstrous, shocking everyone present. What? At this moment, even Qi Hanyu, Wen Liang, Liao Qixio, and Ho Lai, the 4 top experts, were surprised by the scene before them. Under the astonished gazes of the countless people present, the 7 enormous chains that emitted silver light directly wrapped around the demonic beast of death and tightly bound it. The demonic beast of death let out a long, sharp roar, and black gas rose outside its body. It seemed that it was going to break the chains, and its sharp claws and tentacles were flying randomly. However, at this moment, Chu Hen, like a flowing light, left a series of shadows in the void and flashed to the huge head of the queen ant in the twinkling of an eye. A majestic sword momentum comparable to a torrent burst out of Chu Hen's body. With a whoosh sound, a crystal green holy sword appeared in his hand. Blue Rand's sword. Liao Qixio's face changed, and then he shouted, "Stop him!" On the other side, Ho Lai also clenched his fists, and his eyes were surging with coldness. "Stop him!" The experts of the blood refining hall flew up and rushed toward Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen was unmoved. He held the hilt of the Blue Rand sword with both hands, and the tip of the sword pointed down. Streaks of dark thunder flew out again and lingered on the sword. Slash! The heavy momentum exploded in everyone's ears. Chu Hen exerted force in his arms, and his blood vessels bulged. He held the Blue Rand sword tightly, and the rapid sound of breaking wind flew past his ears. Under the shocked gazes, the Blue Rand sword, which exuded a strong destructive aura, stabbed diagonally at the white mark caused by the sickle of death on the queen ant's head. Bang! The power of the Blue Rand sword was unstoppable. The terrifying sword momentum suddenly broke the defense layer of the demonic beast of death, and the sharp sword blade deeply pierced into the opponent's head. Then, with a muffled bang, sound, a rain of blood and stinky liquid splashed. A green sword light abruptly pierced through the queen ant's head, and with a strong posture, it penetrated one of the giant eyes of the queen ant's head.